Columbus, Georgia, this is your City Council. Mayor, Skip Henderson. City Manager, Isaiah Hughley. Pops Barnes, District 1. Glenn Davis, District 2. Bruce Huff, District 3. Toya Tucker, District 4. Charmaine Crabb, District 5. Gary Allen, Mayor Pro Tem and District 6. Mimi Woodson, District 7. Walker Garrett, District 8. Judy Thomas, Post 9 at-large counselor. John House, Post 10 at-large counselor.
Sandra Davis, Clerk of Council.
And City Attorney Clifton Fay. Columbus, Georgia, this is your City Council.
Good evening and welcome to the October 25th City Council meeting. We're glad to have you with us this evening. We are going to begin this meeting as we begin all of ours. That's by asking God's presence on these proceedings. And we had scheduled to visit with us, I think, Pastor Seth Hahn from Grace Baptist Church of Columbus. Is Pastor Hahn here? I didn't see him. In lieu of that, I'm going to ask our Mayor Pro Tem to lead our prayer this evening.
Pray with me. God, we come to you now, thanking you for this day and the ability to come together. Thank you for our health and the ability to work with those that we have worked with over the years. We thank you for those that are in attendance and those watching. We ask you to bless their families and their lives in the way only you can. Be with us now as we go through this meeting. Help us to do your work and keep you in mind as we do that. Thank you for all the blessings you bestow upon us. In my Savior's name, amen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. And even though Pastor Hahn was not able to make it, we want to thank them for the way they serve the city of Columbus. They really look after our public safety officers. They host an annual service for them every year, and regret that he didn't make it, but we certainly are grateful for the way they serve the folks of this community. If you would, please rise and join me in our pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, councilors, you should have have been given a copy of the October 11th minutes. Motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any edits or any corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. I'm going to call up first thing from the city attorney's agenda. We've got some folks here that are visiting from out of town, and they need to try to beat this weather as they head on back. And so I'm going to ask for Angelica to come up front first. We'll deal with the bond issues. I think I caught her off guard. I apologize. Mr. Fay?
All right, while they're coming, this is a resolution that would approve of the issuance of the Series 22C lease revenue bonds of Columbus Building Authority, about $12.45 million for 10th Street, 5th Avenue renovations for the sheriff. Ms. Alexander is here now.
Good evening, members of council, Mr. City Manager, Mr. Mayor. As you all may recall, several weeks ago, Deputy City Manager Hodge and I came before this council to request approval to purchase TSIS building. It is directly adjacent to the public safety building and in close proximity to the jail. This will house the sheriff's office administration. We requested to issue Columbus Building Authority bonds to finance the renovation for the facility. We will be utilizing OLOS reserves to purchase the building, but we issued bonds to provide for the renovations of the building. So as you all may see on the agenda today, we issued those bonds earlier today. We issued about $12.45 million in bonds. That's the par amount for the bonds. We have with us today our bond counsel as well as our financial advisors. And I'm going to actually turn it over to Courtney Rogers. He is the Senior Vice President for Davenport and Company. He'll provide a brief presentation about the results of the bond sale from this morning.
Thank you, Angelica. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you. So, real quick, of course, we just went through a couple of bond issues earlier this year, so we had to talk to the rating agencies again. When we do each issue, we go through and get a bond rating because they rate each issue as we go. Of course, of the issues we've already gone through with, this is the smallest of the three. So this was sort of the last one. Last time we talked to the rating agencies back in January, here we are now in basically October. We didn't have final audits to talk to them about yet, so we just kind of gave an update on where things were headed. And I'm pleased to report that we kept our ratings at a AA+ with S&P and a AA2 with Moody's. Basically, Moody's at the AA2, their challenges that they're looking at for us are basically the additional debt that we've been adding, and also they look at the reliance on the sales tax, and of course those sales tax are dependent upon what's going on in the economy, so they look at that as one of the risks. But on the good side is they said we still have a very healthy financial position. So, you know, you all have done a great job of getting yourselves into the position. We didn't have a lot of debt going into these issues this year. And so we were able to take on this debt, and knowing that there, at least at this point, there's no other major capital issues that we have out there that we need to take care of. So we should be set for a while from the standpoint of any new issues. Hopefully, if you see us again, one day would be maybe an opportunity to refinance bonds like we had issued today. On the S&P side, very similar comments in terms of the strength of the finances, but also looking at the additional debt we've taken on. But they said in their commentary that it was relatively limited debt, and they felt like it was moderate in comparison to others of similar size and ratings. So we, as Angelica said today, we actually sold the bonds. We put them out for bid at 11 o'clock. We had 7 bidders, as you can see on the screen here. They ranged from the lowest TIC at a 431 to a high of a 453. Once we add the cost of issuance, the all-in true interest cost was 4.5%. This page kind of gives you the issues. Essentially, they're 5% coupons. The yields you can see are lower. What happens is they end up wanting a little bit higher coupons, so they give us a little bit lower yield. In return, we don't have to issue as much debt to produce the $13 million we need for the project. So we're able to actually issue a little bit lower bonds. Final debt service is roughly $1 million a year, and that's what we'll repay for 20 years. And when you add that to the existing OLOS debt service, which is where the funds are coming from to pay that debt service, you'll see it's just under $7 million a year for the first several years until some of the debt, existing debt falls off. Graphically, you can see it's basically pretty level for a few years, and it's going to drop off until it goes out to the older issues drop off out there in 2040. So thought it might be interesting for you to see where we have been and where we are today. So this is the interest rate graphics. The left graph is the 20-year AAA MMD, which is basically assuming a AAA rated entity. It's the guide that we use in our industry. And you can see going back to the year 2000, we've been in a generally downward sloping interest rate environment until recently, of course. And that you can see on the right-hand side. We sold the refunding bonds back in 2019. You can see that blue line. Then we had some very low rates when we issued the 2022 A and B bonds earlier this year. But since then, rates have been rising. As you all know, the Fed has been raising interest rates, so that's driven our market up. At the bottom, you can kind of see a chart. The refinancing we did had a 240 all-in TIC. We were at a 162 on the Judicial Center. Those were shorter bonds. The 20-year bonds that we did for the admin building were at 242. So we've seen the market increase about 200 basis points since we issued the administrative building bonds earlier this year. But I will say, if you look back on the left-hand side of that chart, we're kind of where the market was back in 2010 to 2015. And I'll tell you, when we were at that point in time, we were like 4%. This is great money. So we're kind of back to that level. It kind of feels a little different because we saw these ridiculously low interest rates over the last several years. But the good news is, when you look at those numbers, we issued $130 million at a 162. We issued $50 million at a 240. We've averaged down. So we got most of the larger parts of the financing that were needed for the various buildings that we're taking care of. We did most of that at these lower interest rates. And so this last one, which I'll call sort of a cleanup bond, if you will, of just a little over $10 million, while it's higher in interest rates, most of these were issued at lower rates. So where do we go from here? So earlier today, the building authority approved all the documents. We're asking you all to ratify the supplemental bond resolutions and approve the contract today. And then legal counsel will move to validation, bond validation. And then we will close on the bonds scheduled for November 22nd. So, Mr. Mayor, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Courtney? Been a little bump in the interest rates, but I appreciate you putting them in perspective the way you did, to remind us that it wasn't that long ago when those were considered pretty good rates.
That's right.
All right, Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a question, but I would like for Courtney to introduce or those who are here with him.
Absolutely.
Sure. Doug Gephardt with me at Davenport & Company, and then Jim Pinnell and Stephen Swinson with Gray Pinnell and Woodward. They're legal counsel, bond counsel.
All right. Well, there is a
Motion.
need a
Second.
motion second to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Approved. Gentlemen, thank you for your work.
Yeah.
All right. We have a proclamation for National American Indian Heritage Month. Receiving is Malone Moore and the Daughters of the American Revolution American Indians Committee. They want to come forward, and Counselor John House is going to present this.
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome, ladies.
It's certainly my pleasure to read this proclamation into the record. Whereas the history and culture of our great nation has been significantly influenced by American Indians and indigenous peoples, and whereas the contributions of American Indians have enhanced the freedom, prosperity, and greatness of America today, and whereas their customs and traditions are respected and celebrated as part of a rich legacy throughout the United States, and whereas Native American Awareness Week began in 1976 and recognition was expanded by Congress and approved by President George Bush in August 1990, designating the month of November as National American Indian Heritage Month, and whereas in honor of National American Indian Month, community celebrations, as well as numerous cultural, artistic, educational, and historical activities have been planned. Now, therefore, B.H. Skip Henderson, Mayor of Columbus, Georgia, does hereby proclaim November 2022 as National American Indian Heritage Month.
We appreciate it.
You want to give us your names and let us know, tell us a little bit about the Daughters of, see how y'all got here.
Okay, my name's Malone Moore, and I'm the Regent of George Walton Chapter DAR, and we're a service organization for women. We're also a patriotic heritage organization. Also have Julie Hobbs, our first Vice Regent, and then Jean Anderson, and she is our national, you say it.
National Indian Heritage person for the DAR every week.
Well, terrific. Well, we appreciate very much what you're doing to make sure that history stays alive. And if you would, come up here and let us thank you, and I'll present the proclamation to you. All right, Mr. City Manager, you want to call up item 1 on your agenda? Hit your light. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, and council, I am pleased to present my candidate to fill the position of Director of Planning for Columbus, Georgia. And that person, we all know him, is Will Johnson, and I'm going to ask him to come to the podium. So I see the smiles. Will Johnson is no stranger to us. You know Will. We know Will. Will worked for more than 20 years in the planning department here at the Columbus Consolidated Government. He left the CCG in February of this year to move on to bigger and better things, he thought. But he left here to become the county manager for Marion County, Georgia. But Will is ready to come back home.
Definitely.
And so, as I said, we all know Will. He was actively involved in the 2003, the 2018, and the 2028 Columbus Comprehensive Plan. He was involved in the reapportionment plan for council district boundaries. Will has been involved in multiple redevelopment plans to include South Columbus Revitalization Plan, Liberty District Redevelopment Plan, and the Unified Development Ordinance. He is responsible for the UDO that you all wrestle with all the time. And that's just to name a few. But Will's knowledge, background, and experience in planning will provide for a good transition to his new role of planning director for the city of Columbus. Will comes recommended by my selection team that's composed of Deputy City Managers Pam Hodge, who he will report directly to, and Deputy City Manager Lisa Goodwin, the Finance Director, Angelica Alexander, and Human Resources Director Aretha Hollowell. I believe Will thrive in this new role and move our community forward in a cohesive, planned, creative direction that follows sound practices in planning and transportation planning. Will is a well-educated man. He graduated from Hardaway High School. He holds 2 bachelor's degrees from Auburn University in history and political science, a master's degree from Jacksonville State University in public administration, and a master's degree from the University of Georgia in education. He's confused. But Will has started his doctorate's degree at Valdosta State University in public administration. He worked as an adjunct professor at Chattahoochee Valley Community College for almost 3 years. Will is ready to come home and he's ready to go to work. And so, Mayor and Council, I'm requesting confirmation of Will Johnson for the position of Director of Planning.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very
So,
much.
Will, would you like to say something?
Yeah, you mentioned the degree from Georgia. I had Alicia Smith was a reporter here, and she came in my office one day, and she said, "You got all this Georgia stuff in your office, but that's an Auburn degree." I said, "Well, I got to fix that." So I fixed it, and turns out it was a good thing I did, because CVCC made child support payments when I needed it to, so that worked out well. But I'm glad to be back. I don't feel like I've missed a beat, because my phone stays busy from Columbus, and it will stay busy, I'm sure, from Marion County when I get back. But glad to be home. This has always been home. This is really my first job, career type job as an adult, and ready to keep it going, do some new things, get some new ideas going, and hit the ground running next Monday.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
You want to
Anybody
come
else
around
want
and shake the people?
Well, I was gonna let them get it out of their system first.
Well, let me just say.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. You too.
Congratulations, buddy.
Yes, that way. All right. See y'all Monday.
All right, thank you. Will, welcome back, ma'am. Used to, the only time I'd see you is out at Peach Little League.
You ain't saying you no more.
No, he's too busy shaking hands. All right, we have another nominee for a position here in the government, and I'm gonna invite Donna McGinnis to come to the podium. I think she's here. Okay. Okay. He's still on court. Thank you, Will. You don't mind if we continue, do you? Yeah. As Donna comes, Counselor Howe.
I move that we delay this vote.
I second.
Well, there's a motion and a second to delay. Is there any conversation associated with the delay, request for delay? Is there a time certain that you want it delayed?
Hopefully until after the next council meeting.
After?
For the next council.
So the 8th, delayed until the 8th.
Yes.
All right, there's a motion and a second to delay to the 8th. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, all those in favor of the delay, raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
All right, all those opposed? Raise your hand. We'll get an accurate count, all right? Ms. McGinnis, sorry we got you out here tonight. We'll do this again on the 8th. Thank you. All right, next is I think we've got the add-on is on your agenda. So I think we can go on to the city attorney's agenda with this.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Ready for some votes on zoning and other matters. Mr. Renfro's here. We've got, the vote is ready on 7300 Old Moon Road. This is the Greystone petition.
Motion second to approve. Any discussion? Please cue it. Councilors, enter your vote. We're still, all right, and that's approved.
All right, Mr. Gibson, thank you for being here on that one. It is passed. Next one up is the Addendum 3 for password login access cybersecurity training. This ordinance is ready for adoption.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Is there any discussion? All right, cue it. Councilors, register your votes, please. That's approved.
Okay. Item 3 would impose a moratorium on the promotion procedures for police department, fire EMS.
Motion and a second? Move to delay. Well, we had a motion to delay. Your motion was to approve. All right, there's a subsequent motion to delay. Councilor Garrett?
I've received concerns regarding the promotion freeze, and I know some of them may be addressed by you, Mr. Mayor. You'd mentioned something about freezing the list. I know that was one of the concerns, was that the list would become diluted if there's a moratorium put and somebody's left out for a year. There'll be additional candidates, but not enough positions to fill. I know you did have something to say on that, so.
Well, my only concern is without the freeze on it, there are those that may be promoted, and the promotion in the public safety realm, if once the new pay and compensation plan is passed, they could be hurt financially. So we have talked about, and I know that the assistant city attorney has spoken with the chiefs about the promotion lists, and that's where the concern is that if there are people already on the list, and if that list is somehow changed because there's some others that pass and get on that list, or worse, some age off of it, that they would have been denied an opportunity. So our recommendation was to freeze the entire process to include all lists, not subtract from or add to. So I don't know if we need to make that in addition to that, or if we just need to meet with the chiefs and tell them that that process is frozen, including the promotion list. All right, the motion to amend this and place in there that they are to keep the current promotion list in place until this freeze is removed. Councilor Thomas?
And Mr. Mayor, as I understand it, that means it just stops right now. And nothing, no promotion, no on the list, no off the list, no nothing until we get to the point where we have passed the pay plan. And at that point, it picks back up where it is today and goes forward from there.
As I understand it, that's the desire of council, and I think it's a good move.
I think that's what the moratorium means, is
Right.
that we stop it, and when the plan is approved, it picks right back up where it is today.
Right, and obviously, an editorial, the quicker the plan is approved, the less chance there is for some of these folks being damaged by this particular process. All right, so there is a motion, a second. Councilor Crabb, is this to the motion?
Yes, this is to the motion. I'm wondering if we shouldn't bring this back to first reading so we can hear from the chiefs, we can hear from people on the list. And make sure, I know we have people in the audience today. I just want clarification because Counselor Thomas said she thinks that this is how it works. I want to make sure that this is how it works, that we're not just thinking that this is how it works and then we vote on it and then something else gets pulled up. I want some clarification and I want some absolutes.
Yeah, Chief Blackman, did you have anything to add to this? I think the concern is that the lists may either end up with more people on them because we've delayed the implementation of that list. My fear is that by doing nothing, I just want to make sure we're not going to put folks in danger of being damaged financially. Counselor Thomas, while he's coming, did you have something?
We do have a motion to delay on the table, and that would mean that this first reading is delayed until a time certain, if that's what it is. And that because of that, everything continues.
Chief, help us out here. I think what council's trying to do is the right thing by making sure nobody's damaged financially. But we also want to make sure that there's not 6 people or 10 people added to promotion lists that are already in play. Can we pause and freeze the entire process?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager, and council members. So with our promotional process, we have a promotional list for the rank of sergeant, the rank of lieutenant, and the rank of captain. The current sergeant list is scheduled to expire in December of 2023.
Did you say 22?
23.
23, okay.
The current lieutenant's list is scheduled to expire in January 2023. The current captain's list is scheduled to expire in December of 2022. And so we currently have a promotional process underway now whereas in accordance to city ordinance, information regarding the announcement, regarding picking up study material, let me back up, regarding the announcement, regarding signing up for the promotional process, and regarding picking up study material is underway, as well as notifying the candidates once that list has been certified. The candidate list has been certified for this promotional process. Then the dates have been established as far as the exam date, the date for, as well as the date for the assessment center. So what goes on with selecting the date for the assessment center is contacting police officers throughout the state or the surrounding area to serve as assessors for our promotional process. So currently, the test for the written test for the rank of lieutenant will take place in a couple of weeks in November. And then the assessment center, those who score 70 or above, will advance to the assessment center. So the assessment center process will take place from December the 5th through the 8th. And this assessment center will be held for the rank of lieutenant and captain. So the way the promotional process works is the lieutenants will take a written test and go through the assessment center, where those who are the captain's rank would just go through the assessment center. And so, excuse me, those lieutenants will go through the assessment center. And once they score on the exam. And so then the process then will take place as far as the list being established once that assessment center has been completed. So for the lieutenants, for the sergeants, of course, they're not in this process now because their list will not expire until 2023 in December. But so for those who are sergeants now, who are vying for the lieutenant position, they will go through the process, and then that list will not be, the new lieutenant's list will not be put in place until the expiration of the current list, which is January 2023. And the captain's list, for those who are lieutenants now trying to make the rank of captain, that list expires is actually December 1st, 2022. So that assessment center, once that assessment center takes place, which is December 5th through the 8th, that current list for lieutenants trying to make captain, that captain's list would already have been expired by the time the assessment center takes place. So once that assessment center has ended, then that becomes effective once the list is established, probably that second week in December, to establish the new captain's list.
Well, and I think you've given us so much information, it's kind of hard to digest, but what seemed clear is that we've got 2 weeks that wouldn't hurt us to try to talk about the best way to make sure the council understands the impact of whatever happens with the freeze, because it's on second reading, it's on second reading now, right?
Yeah, it's on second
So
now.
it'd be second reading and could be implemented on the 8th. And I think.
And I might want to add also, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, is in accordance to the ordinance, once a position becomes open, so in this case, there would be a deputy chief and a sergeant retiring effective October 31st, next Monday. So then the sergeant position is a promoted position. So that position has to be filled within 30 days, according to ordinance. The deputy chief position is an appointed position. And there is no set number of days written into ordinance as to timeline for promotion or appointment, excuse me.
Okay, did you have something, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Garrett made the last motion for the amendment. Did the council want to make a second and vote on that first and then the delay?
Well,
Yes.
I've got some other suggested language here.
Okay.
If we can read that. At least for this section 1, I think the police department is the only one with a material problem right now. That we could add this sentence saying any related promotional lists for lieutenants and captains shall also be frozen during the period of this moratorium. Do you think that would work, Chief?
Can you repeat that sentence?
Yeah, any related promotional lists for lieutenants and captains shall also be frozen during the period of this moratorium. Since those were the 2 positions.
And what would be the time frame of the ending of the moratorium?
It ends on January 31, 23, no matter what.
Okay, and so with that, the moratorium will say that those positions will still be in play until that time. It'd be frozen, but still be considered active.
Right.
Right.
Okay, and so
Just
with
means-
that, then the consideration has to be given to the time period when, because each list, and according to ordinance, Each list lasts for 2 years. And so if the moratorium would freeze it, then it's not going to be a significant impact regarding that being done.
Okay. All right. Well, so where are we now? Councilor Garrett wants to withdraw his motion. And so the motion to delay was made by who?
Tanya.
Okay. All right. So there's a motion and a second to delay until the 8th, right? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Mr. Mayor, I do
Yes.
have a question for the
Please.
chief, if I could. Chief, if we do not take this action to put a freeze on this process, are there people who are currently on one of those 3 lists who would come off the list and not be eligible to go back on the list until, I believe it's a year, they have to stay off the list? Are there those people on the list now that would lose their place on the list?
If the decision is made to freeze the list,
No, I'm saying if we don't freeze it.
well, if you don't freeze it, then if I decide to go forward with a promotion, then it'd be my discretion is if I want to do the promotion before the list expires, or because right now it would be just the sergeant position that has to be filled. The other position is an appointed position. So there is no timeline in which that has to be filled.
I'm sorry, I guess I misunderstood you. I thought you said that the current lieutenant's list expires in the 31st. Is that?
December 1st.
Did I misunderstand that?
December 1st. That's correct.
December 1st.
Right, but see, that position to fill a lieutenant or a captain slot doesn't start until a deputy chief slot has been made.
If the list expires December the 1st.
Right.
Are there people who will come off of that list and have to stay off of that list for at least a year? If I'm on the list and my time on that list I should come off at the next expiration. Are there people who are on that list now who will not be on the list come the next day?
So people who are currently on the lieutenant's list now will also have the opportunity to go through an assessment center promotional process December the 5th through the 8th. So
And get back on the list?
Yes. So the current lieutenant's list expires January 2023, and the captain's list expires December 1st, 2022. But that assessment center process will be held from December the 5th through the 8th of 2022. So in other words, the list for captain expires on the 1st of December 2022. The assessment center starts December the 5th, 2022. And so those individuals, that process, as I stated earlier, is already in place. And so those individuals would have already had an opportunity to sign up and prepare to go through the assessment center process. Now, that list is already established who will be going through that assessment center process in December. That list is already in place. And that list includes some of those individuals who are currently on the list now.
I don't think the delay, the onus really is on the pay plan, because that's the trigger for all of this. So I don't think it'll hurt for this to be delayed for 2 weeks, unless we end up with a situation where we prolong the implementation.
I just don't want to do whatever we need to do to inadvertently knock people off the list to be eligible for promotion.
And I think that's worth waiting 2 weeks to make sure that
And
that
I
happens.
think it's worth waiting at least 2 weeks.
All right. So there is that motion and a second for delay. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna throw something out here and see if this would fix the problem. In a real estate transaction, if a property comes off of the market and then say it's off the market for 30 days and then the contract gets terminated, then we automatically, there's language in the contract, in the listing agreement, that that listing agreement is extended for the amount of time that it was under contract. So I'm wondering if we couldn't add some language to this to where the people that are currently on the list, they are extended past the ending of that's already established, but they are extended out for the number of days that we were frozen. For just those people on this list currently. So we freeze it, that would be like us going under contract. And then when it comes back, these individuals, they remain on the list for if we're frozen for 30 days, 60 days, whatever, then their list gets extended for those 60 more days.
And I think that's a suggestion that could be looked at during the delay, trying to make sure that we wrap it up correctly instead of trying to do something here at the table that doesn't really accomplish what we're after.
Yeah, that would be covered, in my view, by the amendment language I read, but you can amend it tonight or in 2 weeks.
Well, I think we've already got a motion and a second to delay. And we've already, yes, sir, Mr. Chief.
So, as I stated earlier, we currently have a promotional process underway now. Where we are contracted through the University of Georgia to facilitate our promotional process. So, if a delay is approved, then we have set aside from the current list that's in place. Within a couple of weeks, we have a written test for the lieutenant position. And then, again, in December, 5th through the 8th, we have an assessment center process for the lieutenant and captain rank. And so if there's a delay, then consideration needs to be given for that as well, because then that will have to be delayed as well.
And again, I think during the delay, we need to be able to work all those details out so that nobody gets bumped or nobody gets left off. Councilor House?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add, Chief, our intention, I believe, I'm speaking for everybody, is not to affect that next year. Whatever you're doing for the next list should happen. What we're concerned about is the people that are on the list right now that are affected by the moratorium. And I think what Councilor Crabb was talking about, that we'll discuss over the next 2 weeks, is how to make sure the language is right so that whoever's on the list right now, that the eligibility slides.
Yep.
As long as the moratorium's in effect.
Yep.
That's what we're talking about.
We'll get together and we'll talk about, I'm pretty clear on what council wants to try to avoid happening, so we'll get it done. All right, the motion to delay has been properly seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Chief. Yeah, hit it again, Councilor Woodson.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
would you ask him not to leave?
Yeah,
Chief
Councilor
Donovan?
Woodson? Yeah, he's gonna stay. He's got,
Mayor, based on all the information and all the questions and unclarity around the table, are we going to have like a special call meeting, or are we gonna meet in groups or stuff to make sure that we have a clear understanding of what direction we're going in? Because I was confused. I was clear, then I was confused, then I was clear, and I was confused, and I said, you know what, let's delay it.
what we will do is we'll bring back a couple of different options on how to handle this, and we'll be specific in what it addresses and what it ends up allowing us to do. The city attorney's already got some language that I think is gonna come very close to solving it. It's a lot like what Councilor Crabb was saying.
But I don't want, I'm sorry, with all due respect, I don't want you to bring those options here and we got 5-10 minutes to read it and figure out.
We'll get them to you ahead of time.
Okay, we want to be able to have that discussion.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Thank you. City manager, can you ensure we have a discussion, even if it's 4 or 5 of us at a time, like we do for other things? Because this is really complicated, and this really has to do with people's lives. And it has to also do with the pay study. So it's not something you can just get it in email, read it, and make a choice. It's something that we need to discuss among each other, and the pros and cons like we do in other critical situations that we're gonna vote on. So I'm requesting it. I see Toya shaking her head. I see Bruce. So there's several of us that would like to be in group sessions or as a whole to discuss it. Once it's created, the 2 or 3 options, please. Thank you.
We can do that. All right. Mr.
All right, that'll be back in 2 weeks with more possible amendments, 1 or more, to address the chief's issues. Next item, Mayor, is second reading of the court reporter license exemption.
Motion second to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, please register your votes. All right, waiting on one more. All right, that's approved.
That passes. Okay, now we've got a zoning public hearing. No, this is a public hearing. This is at 243 at 220 Oakley Drive, going from residential multifamily 2 to residential office. But it is proposed apartment use, I believe. Is that Ms. Lucy Jones is here with the applicant, and it is recommended conditional approval. Mr. Renfro is here. Any questions around the table?
Councilor Woodson?
No, I don't have my letter. That's approved.
Councilor Huff?
Yes, it is. It's me. We have Ms. Lucy Jones here, and my president of the Neighborhood Watch Program in Holly Hills, Ms. Deborah Singletary. And I just asked, I get all the titles mixed up. Assistant Director?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I call you Director all the time. Assistant Director Renfro, if he would, just a reading to the minutes, what was discussed between the group and Ms. Lucy Jones, or what's going on there. Everybody's in agreement.
Sure, good evening. The conditions that were placed on RO for this particular rezoning case was for the first condition is parking requirements waived to allow for 180 parking spots. The second was maximum building.
I'm sorry, is that 180 or 189?
189.
Okay.
Maximum building height restricted to 35 feet. Total units on property restricted to 210 units. And number 4, only multifamily dwellings permitted on this property.
Thank you.
So those are the conditions that will be imposed if this is approved.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Anybody in the audience want to be heard one way or the other? Okay, we're going to vote in 2 weeks then at the 9 o'clock meeting. Thank you, Ms. Jones, for being here. Okay. Mayor, the next item we're going to have a little more discussion on. We want to first add a possible amendment to add the Highside Market area into the ordinance. I think Councilor Woodson may have an amendment to propose on that, and then we'll call Ms. Hodge over.
Okay, Councilor Woodson.
Yes, it's, I think it's item 7. No, that is not. Hindsight, I wanted to bring hindsight up for us to vote as Chief.
Chief Blackman.
Chief.
He's on a phone call.
Stay. He kept going.
Continue.
Look, he just was running. All right. I wanted to bring hindsight up to be voted as an entertainment district because it's a small portion. There is no issues or anything concerned. It's consigned. The responsible party for that is the petitioner for hindsight. So I wanted to bring that as to become the first entertainment district. Lucy, do I need to do anything else, Pam? I just asked
Well,
for a vote.
we're adding that as an amendment to this ordinance, to add the Highside Market property.
Just the Highside Market?
Yes.
Mhm.
So Pam, so we would vote on hindsight first, or we will wait until everything? I think we should vote on hindsight first.
Well, can you show us that on the map, Ms. Hodge?
Whatever, that
So,
accent's coming out.
Section 9, the ordinance establishes the ability to have an entertainment district. So in Section 9, there are 2 districts listed. One was the Uptown District, which we discussed last time, and I have some information on that. The second is Highside Market Entertainment District, and it is just that one parcel. So you'll see that as number 2 under Section 9, which is what Councilor Woodson is asking for the amendment to the ordinance. Chris Woodruff, the developer, has requested this is one parcel, and it would be contained within that one parcel.
All right, Councilor Crabb?
So my understanding was, and maybe clarify this, if it's one parcel, then can't you already take alcoholic beverages from building to building within the one parcel?
No, there's
No, ma'am.
multiple businesses within that parcel that has an alcohol license, and their license would stop at the door. And so
Okay.
this would allow them to utilize the courtyard, but only within the confines of that parcel.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions?
Did we get a motion on adding that?
Make a motion
Well-
to amend and add hindsight market.
Motion and second to add Highside Market. Yeah, I thought, Councilor. All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I apologize for my accent coming out at that time.
All right, Ms. Hodge, you want to make some more comments before we consider any other amendments?
Absolutely. So this is just the presentation that we made at the last meeting related to the tourist service vehicle. That's a component of this ordinance and provides for the definition of that is for a primary purpose, is not for transportation, but for touring and sightseeing. So this is the definition regarding the pedal pub or any other business that would open with this type of a service. And again, the entertainment district, what this ordinance does is establish the framework to identify boundaries as the entertainment district. At this point, there are 2 entertainment districts being proposed. One is the Uptown District, the other now is Highside Market. I have had conversations with the developers of Midland Commons, and I know Chris Whiteman is here and will probably want to speak on first reading related to his particular development. We are working through what the boundaries of Midland Commons Entertainment District would be, but that would be, again, then the 3rd district being proposed for council's consideration. And so what this does is limit one 16-ounce container to carry around within the boundaries of that district, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and again, defining those boundaries. So this was the initial Uptown Entertainment District, which was basically Broadway to Bay, 9th to 14th Street. We did have a public meeting, and we actually had 2 public meetings on October 19th. One was at 2 o'clock and one was at 5:30. We had approximately 20 individuals that came to either one of those meetings. Some came to both meetings. A lot of the comments back and forth, add 12th Street and First Avenue to the Uptown District. That was one thing that we heard at both meetings. There was concerns about enforcement, safety, and trash with establishing this entertainment district. And this specifically related to the Uptown District. most of these comments. Some said to leave Uptown as is, not in favor of the district, and then we had others who were in support of this opportunity, which I see a lot of those individuals, business owners are here today, so I'm sure they'll speak to you about their particular opinion on this entertainment district for Uptown. And then we also heard from the developer, Chris Woodruff, on the Highside Market Entertainment District, which Councilor Woodson has added already to the ordinance. So there are a couple options for adding to the Uptown Entertainment District. One is to just include 12th Street in that entertainment district, so you see that outlined in red. There was another request to also include First Avenue, so that would go down 11th Street, down First Avenue, and over to 10th Street. This does keep the churches separate and segregated from being included in this entertainment district, which we thought was important, and this does encompass those businesses who actually have an alcohol license that could provide the carryout. So this is another option for the Uptown Entertainment District. You've heard from Highside, and I've shown the map on that, so I won't go through that again. But again, this is a public meeting. It's on first reading, and I know there are individuals who are interested in speaking to council about the entertainment district, mostly related to Uptown. And I know there's a representative from Highside if there's any questions on that particular district as well.
Councilor Crabb?
Thank you. Can you go back to the map, please? Okay, on the map on First Street between 12th and 11th, I understand that on the east side, there are churches there. But on the west side, will be the government administration building. So I'm wondering, can we draw the line down that median right there where it doesn't include that block where the churches are, but it does, so people can walk. I'm envisioning people walking to the Springer from 12th, and they would walk down First Street straight down to the Springer, or even to the River Center. If the way this is written right now, they would have to go all the way down to Broadway and then come down and up. And so I understand we don't want them walking in front of the churches, but since that is a divided street, could we include it to be on that side of the median?
We can make any adjustments to this map that council would like for us to consider.
I'd like to make that an amendment and add that to it. Because I think I just envision that people are going to be at these restaurants along 12th Avenue, and 12th Street, and they'll be, walking, down to Broadway to see a concert or something, but they could also be walking to the Springer for a play, or to the River Center for at that venue, and it would be a straight shot right there in that between 11th Street and 12th Street on First Street to include that area, but only on the west side of the street, not the east side of the street. So the barrier would go down the median right there.
I think there may be a concern about trying to, around the table, adjust the street here and the street there. Would it work, this is a question, would it work better to refer those items back to Deputy City Manager Hodge and ask them to look at which ones are practical to incorporate and then bring them back?
Okay.
I just think that if we get to move in a street here, we could really end up with quite a puzzle.
But I just want us to look at this as, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it for practical reasons.
Right.
And it's impractical to have to make them go around Broadway.
And it's important as the uptown shifts and the makeup of the storefronts change a little bit, we'll be able to modify this and modify the boundaries too, so that's a good idea.
So,
Any more, Counselor Thomas?
I'd like to ask if Chief Blackman would come to the podium. I was told that at the 2 meetings that we had about the entertainment district, at one of them, when and I don't know which police officer was there, but at one of them, they said, yes, the police force is in favor of this and can enforce it. And at the other one, they said, well, maybe not. No, I don't think that. So I would like to hear from the chief what your thoughts are, Chief. Is this something that the Columbus Police Department can support, can enforce, can do whatever needs to be done? Tell us what the department thinks, Chief.
Right, so during our internal meeting, as we met to discuss this particular topic, my recommendation, my suggestion was to include a district or an area that was conducive for open container. And this open container area would allow for hopefully less opportunity for police to have to intervene, because that would be an area that's easily identified as to who can and who cannot possess certain open container beverages, open container alcoholic beverages. And so, but if we get into a situation where we don't have a designated area, then it becomes more complex. It becomes more problematic, because then we're trying to determine who exits the pedal pub into the street area with open container, or who does not. But the way it's more simplified is to designate an area where open container is recognized in accordance with the other stipulations that will be put in place. And that would make it a lot more convenient for the officers, if they are called into that particular area, to say whether or not this person is in this designated area and whether or not they can have an open container versus someone being outside of that area. You know, I've communicated with chiefs of police in a very similar situated district where they have a very similar process in place, and it presents less of a challenge for them and in Savannah. And I believe we probably could have some similar results here if we designate a particular area.
And Chief, as I understand the current regulations, in order to have an open container on the 14th Street pedestrian bridge, you have to have a permit for a special event. And in order to have an open container on Broadway during a concert, you have to have a special permit. Is that correct?
When you say special permit, so
An event permit.
To identify the
Yes.
particular cup or that you have.
That next Tuesday night, we're gonna have a concert on Broadway, and you have to have a permit for that. Am I?
Well, right, when concerts are held, so permits are submitted, but to say that permit will allow for an open container, I think we were talking about something different there. Okay. So it's my understanding, with the concept of having an open container in the designated area, there will be some type of agreement that's made as to what types of containers will be used in that designated area, so it will be easily identified as to whether or not that should be allowed there or should it not be allowed there.
And I believe, and Ms. Hodge, you may help me with this one too. I believe that the proposal is that I could not go from one establishment with an where I got an open container into another establishment with that same open container. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay. And I want us to make sure that whatever we settle on ultimately is conducive to both the business of the restaurants and the bars downtown and our citizens. One of the things I was told, and Chief, you may or may not want to comment on this, is that currently there could be people in parking lots with open containers. And this can present a problem for our officers, going through those parking lots. And under this provision, you could be in a parking lot as long as it was in this area. Is that correct?
Right, there would be a certain designated area with other stipulations as to the type of container, where the individual that they would need to be in possession of. So it would be easily identified to the officers as to whether or not that particular container is in compliance with the ordinance. And that's what I meant by earlier, saying that it could be handled in a way that makes it more simplified for officers to handle, as opposed to someone who they may be in that particular district, but they don't have the container that's identified as the acceptable container. Then that's something that would need to be addressed. Or if someone outside of that district has an open container, then that's easily something that should be addressed.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. No more questions from around the
Well,
table?
this is a public hearing. Do we want to let other folks comment? If you want to comment, raise your hand and come on up to the podium and give them your address. Ma'am, you can start.
If you give your name and address, if you don't mind.
My name is Nikki Gedroyce. My address is 4994 Morris Avenue. I live in Columbus. I'm a business owner in Uptown, and I am in favor of this ordinance. I believe that it would be beneficial to businesses. I personally took time to go to the market this past Saturday and talk with people and see what they felt like. And overwhelmingly, the vendors in market and the business owners on Broadway that I spoke with and the customers that were enjoying Uptown were in favor of it. In fact, one of the persons grabbed the petition out of my hand and signed it and said, "You're doing the work of God here." So we distributed the petition online where we got in excess of 200 signatures. I think we're currently at about 210 people, local friends and family that are in favor of this. And I, in just a matter of an hour, collected about in excess of 100 signatures of people who were patronizing, selling their wares in marketplace, or I walked into the business and had them sign. So I think overwhelmingly people have been to cities and enjoyed an entertainment district and found it to be something that they would like to see in Uptown. I appreciate your time and thank you for your service to our city.
Thank you.
All right, come on up. Gentleman over here on the right side, you can give us your name and address, please.
Mayor, Council, my name is Garrett Lawrence. I live at 1222 Monroe Avenue in Columbus, Georgia. I am a business owner of Multitude and Nonick that are both located in Uptown. I'm also very much in favor of this ordinance. I think, after we went to the presentation, I was in favor of back in the presentation when we had in 2018 about this, so I don't think anything has changed except made me even more strongly in favor of this ordinance. Concerns were brought up by certain business owners and interested parties that live in the Uptown community, but I think that it bears out in cities like Dunwoody, Conyers, Toccoa, Savannah, Atlanta, Marietta, Cartersville, Phoenix City, and Opelika, that they can do this, and it succeeds. There's no CPD, mentioned that there hasn't been any increased strain on law enforcement as far as responding to incidents or crime or anything like that. One thing that really stood out to me when we had our meeting was that this ordinance establishes an entertainment district clause or law in the city code. So if we vote this down for Uptown, which in my opinion is for the last 20 years been kind of a beacon for independent businesses, for hospitality, for restaurants, for entertainment, then all of a sudden that puts business owners in Uptown behind those in High Side Market or Midland Commons or Mid-City Yards if those come to pass later on. And I think that's a big factor because we don't have that population density, those people that live in Uptown. We have people that come to Uptown to patronize our businesses and to experience what Uptown has to offer. One thing I heard mentioned in the meeting was, some kind of extended trial. In regards to that, I think we've had this extended trial for about the last 10 years. We do a fall and spring concert series every year. And the only negatives I heard out of business owners from that were that the businesses that see the money, the revenue, the increased foot traffic are only those ones isolated on that block where the concert's happening. They want it to spill over onto 12th Street, onto the 1200 block, onto the 1100 block. They want a piece of that action, and I think this can do that. One other thing, in regards to, if someone says this would make Uptown less family friendly, since I've had 2 kids in the last 3 years, my oldest is 2, and it's impossible to keep him sitting still in any situation. So I would love this as a patron to be able to walk into Nonick or Frank's or Simple Greek or Stock Market, any of the businesses downtown, be able to order some food to go, get a drink to go sit in the Pocket Park and watch him play, or just walk up and down Broadway, because that's all he likes to do right now, just run directionally, up and down. So, as far as the family-friendly aspect of this, I think it only would strengthen that and just improve everything for business owners and residents of Uptown. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else in that row?
Hello, City Council. My name is Scotty DeClue. I live at 1600 Boulevard Street in Midtown. And I just have an opinion. I have a statement I'm just going to read to you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So I've been in hospitality community for 8 years, and I've also been a regional planner for 3, helping rural communities in the River Valley region grow and develop through comprehensive plan improvement, which involves downtown revitalization strategy. In my hospitality experience, I've seen the back end of businesses and how much small changes like these can make an impact on businesses' bottom line as a whole. And I am in support of this, by the way. Passing this ordinance could result in more patrons at downtown businesses, and healthy businesses that make more money are good for business owners, they're good for the employees, and it's good in turn for economic development as a whole. In my travels across Georgia as a planner, helping communities identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, I've seen what harms and cripples the growth of these places' populations, and stagnation is one of those things. I can tell you now that when people are looking for places to move and live and work, they look for a place that has good jobs, good schools, and things to do. How are we, a city of 200,000 people, and even more so, a regional destination for visitors unable to keep up with what other communities across Georgia are doing successfully. There's not substantial evidence, as seen by successful entertainment districts launched in places like Savannah and all the other places that Garrett mentioned, that allowing people who are already drinking downtown to put their beverages in a cup and walk around outside will result in increased crime rates. I'm sure you have heard or will hear that Uptown is a fragile, precious gem that needs to be protected. And while that is true, the notion that this policy will increase crime rates is a red herring and a distraction. The benefits of this policy passing will make our community more marketable and will put us on the map with other Georgian communities who have learned the simple truth that entertainment districts work, they're good for business owners, they're good for growth, and they make our city more desirable. Please allow our Uptown community to give this opportunity a chance, and together I believe with proper planning this could be a big win. Thank you.
Councilor Garrett.
I want to add my own comments. I've heard concerns about this, and I actually think the opposite of what many of the concerns are. I think this actually encourages moderation, because when you think about when you're out at dinner, you're going to the comedy night at the Loft, or you got tickets to the Springer, what happens at the end when you're pressed for time? You finish your drink quickly, or your friends are like, hey, let's go. If people are able to walk around downtown, it gives them a chance to sober up. It gives them a chance to not drink too quickly, which people tend to do if they're rushed. I think in many ways, I mean, this is just something that establishes regulations on something that's already happening. We all know it does when there's concerts and series like that. But I think this is something that does actually promote moderation. I think it promotes people walking around downtown businesses and walking and visiting parks, things like that. And I don't think this is a bad thing. I don't think it will bring down Uptown.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else?
Somebody on the front row, and then we've got others.
Yes. Hi, my name is Alston Auden. I represent Christopher Woodruff in Highside Market. We are in support of the special assignment of Highside Market Entertainment District, separate and apart from Uptown. Chris has a vision of creating different communities and developments similar to those in Atlanta, such as Atlantic Station or Ponce City Market or Avalon outside of Atlanta, something that hasn't existed in Columbus before, something that leaves a mark on this community. You guys have heard this spiel before through the TAD, and allowing this to be an entertainment district accomplishes all of those goals. It means that there's a different destination in Uptown that is similar to Uptown, but separate and apart because it's its own pocket community. So we are in support of the Highside Market Entertainment District, and we appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Nelms, you want to come up?
Mr. Nelms, how are you, sir?
Hey, Hal, good to see all of y'all. Hey, thanks for taking a closer look at this. It's important. You know, we have a long history there, and a lot of you have been right here with us doing it. This is my business partner, Tom Jones. We have the restaurants, the Loft, Marbella's, and Salt Cellar, and we also have another one under construction. And we're real interested in really boring down into this, and let's see the flip side of it, you know, the possibilities and the negatives to it also. You know, back in '92, we actually established an entertainment district, and we were able to have alcohol license side by side, and we were, you know, changing the laws a little bit, and even having mixed drinks laws. I had to come and have an ordinance to change just to have a mixed drinks downtown because everything had been shut down because it went real dark. And in '92, we bought our first property in '85 and got some momentum. In '92, we opened the Loft as it is now. It's been open for 30 years except for COVID. And so during this time, and the laws changed, we had a real robust nightlife. It took off, it started happening. And we grew to a point in '06, '07 where it got a little bit out of hand. First one thing happened, then another. And then it was like a My Lai 19. There was a lot of videos going around, a lot of negative publicity. And it came to the point where we had to shut it down and start this engine again. And we met with CSU Police, Captain Ross, our police department, Uptown and Fort Benning, and to try to get support on how we could maintain this and keep it safe, because it was definitely unsafe. And so we came up with a plan, and we put, Jackie Long was our walking tall downtown, and he helped reel all this in. We had a plan of blocking streets, we had layers, and we also had MPs involved, and we also had undercover, and people didn't realize this, we had an undercover station outside. We were able to reel this back in and get it where it was manageable. We even had meetings, we talked about limiting nightclub license and bar license and just restaurant license. So it was a very strategic plan on how we could regain our area back to grow it back. And so that shift happened with everybody pulling together. And even the bar owners, and we all had to pull together, even the doormen, we would communicate with each other. If there's a problem, we'd all identify a problem, not let the problem get into the rest of the places. So we were actually very effective in turning this around. And the reason why I bring that up is because now we're the shining star of the region. I mean, we are a family environment, and I'm so proud of it. We are the destination restaurant area that we had hoped we would be, with growing every day. And I think we're the center of our cultural arts center. Is where we want to come when we have people from out of town. The riverfront, all that stuff is just a dream come true for me, and I guess all of us too. And I guess where I really want to make sure is that this is vetted so intensely that we know that there is a security plan. What is the game plan? What's going to be different? Because I don't want to do one thing to back up into the old days. I don't want to do one thing to tarnish our families that we have coming downtown and the negative aura that we've had about our area. We've spent so much time and energy and marketing to overcome that. So I just really appreciate y'all really looking at this in a deep way to understand the impact on the other side of it too. I'm not a proponent for this ordinance, how it's written and how it's laid out. I've read through it, I've looked at 2 or 3 different maps. It's a constant little changing. I don't believe our citizens are our property owners. The people that pay the bid tax, that we tax ourselves to have it clean or safer, I'm not sure the bid tax, the people that pay the tax are actually understand that this ordinance is on the books. I think it'd be real prudent of us to make sure that those people have that contact and that letter to know that their property values can be affected by this. There was a very bad incident that happened in Mobile, Alabama, that absolutely shut the downtown down, completely went tank. And I don't know if it's even recovered to today. So those property values went bottomed out, and everybody ran for the hills. And when I opened when I first bought my property back in downtown, I couldn't even get a financing for my building. I had to pay cash for our building. There was no bank that would finance me to open. Now we are the most vibrant tax center of all of Columbus, and we pull more building permits than all of Columbus. We have more incentive than all of Columbus. What's wrong? We're on the course that we need to be. I just don't want to take a chance on getting off course again and going back to where we had to work our way through a couple of times now. Appreciate y'all really looking at this and finding a plan around it that works.
Thank you. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Nelms and Mr. Jones. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Molly Smith. I live at 720 Broadway. Had no intention of speaking tonight, but a couple of things that have been said I just couldn't not express my thoughts on, at least. I went to the 2 o'clock meeting last week. I've been here tonight, and I have watched the video of the last meeting at council. And the problem I have at this point is it's not clear what you're even voting on. I think that this is half-baked. Every meeting I've been to, the scope has changed. It's done it again tonight. And it's not really, to me, you can't assume that one size fits all works in an entertainment district. I mean, High Side Market is very different than Uptown. I don't know anything about Midland Commons, but, and then we're not, the Pedal Pub, this tour service vehicle operator, having that as a licensed entity operator is one thing, and an entertainment district is another thing. And then once you establish an entertainment district, to have a process to determine and a process for determining and voting on which ones are appropriate. Instead of lumping it all together, it seems inappropriate and irresponsible to me. I mean, the questions I heard asked at the 2 o'clock meeting last week, many times the answers were, we don't know. We don't know, the district itself was evolving. We have no idea about the cups situation. So if that's not clear, how do you know how it will be enforced? Or what issues will it create in order to ensure enforcement properly? So, I mean, to me, before you can decide what Uptown districting looks like, you need to understand what Uptown as an entity is going to determine is the process for obtaining and what the cups will look like. So I just feel like, I think Buddy was right. You need to engage stakeholders for each different part separately and slow this down a little bit and just, I don't know why everything's being lumped together in one big vote instead of separately. There just seems a lot of open questions to me that I'm not hearing answers to, and I don't know how you could vote without those answers personally. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lumpkin, welcome, sir.
I'm probably the only one in here that has the distinction of being born on Third Avenue.
Give me your
downtown Columbus.
name and address, Mr. Lumpkin.
My name is Frank Lumpkin. I'm an owner of various properties in downtown Columbus. And I have looked at this idea, and the one thing that came kind of clear to me, I think the Pedal Pub is a great idea, but y'all are trying to do too much. I mean, as my daddy said, too much sugar for a nickel. You need to get him in business and then come back and mess with this. This is too much. The other thing is, when you were talking about the cups, at the meetings last week, 16 ounces is a pint, if I did my math right. That's an awful large amount of alcohol, because what they were talking about, you can take your cup and drink it on the way to the Springer. Well, if you drink 16 ounces, you're going to sleep through the second part of the Springer, play that you went to see. I can promise you. But anyway, I mean, I'm kind of like what the young lady said, before me. I just think you got a little more thinking to do before you just rubber stamp this thing. So that's my call. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Chad Scrimshire. I live at 1424 20th Street in Columbus, Georgia. I'm also a business owner in Uptown Columbus. I am strongly in favor of the entertainment district. We've tabled this for a little over 4 years now, and we've talked to people in other communities. I've gone and worked in Savannah and dealt firsthand with guests, getting to-go drinks, and as Walker said, Councilman Garrett, sorry. It did seem to limit reckless drinking. I did see firsthand people just pour the drink they had in their cup and walk out instead of slamming that one and then trying to get out and catch the Uber. This operates without a hitch in Opelika and their downtown area. They don't see any issues. It's currently going on in Phoenix City without any issues. In Mobile, it may not have been a success, but it's a singular instance, and it's the only one we can find on record where this didn't work. We have way more evidence to support that this would be a positive change for Uptown Columbus than we do that it would be the opposite. So I just think that we should do this, and I think the positive growth Columbus could see as a result can't go unnoticed. And I appreciate y'all's time. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Chad. Counselor Thomas?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to request that as the ordinance is developed, that you consider putting something in there that would have us come back in, say, 12 months and take a look at it and see what has happened and how it has progressed. Not to end it in that 12 months, but to let's take a look at it and see what's there and see if it has indeed met what I'm being told by many people, that they think this would be a very good idea for downtown. So let's revisit it in 12 months and see, and be sure that we have the police department involved in that review and whatever. Not necessarily to end it, but let's review it and see if it needs to be tweaked. Thank you.
Thank you.
Make that amendment.
Do I need to make that as a motion or?
Yeah, I would go on and make an amendment. We can add a section 2 to put that in there.
If you would do that.
All right, there's a motion and a second to amend it, to provide a 12-month look back, just to kind of see what needs tweaking. Any discussion? Counselor Woodson, is it to the motion?
No.
Okay, well, we'll call the question then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's amended.
Thank
Counselor
Okay,
Woodson?
that'll be a new section 3, it looks like, whatever the numbers correspond to.
All right.
Anybody else?
Counsel. Counselor Woodson.
I wanted to see if anybody else wanted to speak, and if no one else wanted to speak, then I wanted to ask for Mr. Ed from Uptown Columbus to come forward. But I want to
We got a
wait till
hand.
everybody finishes speaking. Oh, it's not a problem. I'm just saying, that's what I would like. After everyone finished speaking, I would love for Uptown to come up, so, because I have some questions. Sure. Thank you.
Give them your name and address, please, Chris.
Yes, Chris Whiteman, 1712 Park Drive. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Manager. So what we've got here is we're not like downtown. We're self-contained, we're private-owned property, and I don't want to be confused with downtown and what y'all are trying to get done downtown. So Pam has asked us, we can't do anything with this property yet, but would you be willing to come down here and at least tell us what it is that y'all want to do? We don't have a separate ID yet. We're going to have a closing next Wednesday, which was spawned on by this. But this is.
Can we, Mr. Whiteman, you grab that mic right there, you'll be able to, it's right behind the nameplate.
Is it on?
There we go.
So what we've got is two L-shaped buildings. And then we're going to build these two buildings and then these back buildings. So what we want to do is kind of just take that space and make it an entertainment district. We just don't, we feel like that, the people that are going to be coming and eating it at this place want to be able to travel around and go eat at other places. So kind of all I got to say. I'm sorry?
Could you identify the streets on that?
Yeah, so this is going to be Midland Commons Boulevard. And in front of this street, we've got more out parcels. So right over here, you've got the gas station, Zelno's and Arby's. Right across the street from that, you're going to have a new Synovus Bank. Next door to that, you're going to have an urgent care clinic. And then this stuff here in the back. We've got a stage So what we want is people to be able to sit out there and drink a cocktail and listen to music.
Counselor House.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Whiteman, maybe as to help orientation, could you point out where Beaver Run Road is, where the Walmart is, and where Flat Rock Park is?
Yeah, so it's a little bit more difficult here, but right over here, we have Walmart,
Okay.
okay? Beaver Run would be sitting catty corner to us on the property. And so you've got J.R. Allen Parkway right here, and you've got frontage lots. Flat Rock Park would be right behind us. Yep.
Counselor, Mayor Pro Tem Allen.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think basically what you're saying is this is it would be a contained entertainment district inside of a 84-acre tract of land, so it wouldn't be adjacent to residential areas or other things like that. It would be contained.
No, none other than the ones that are gonna be living upstairs, and they know they're signing away their right to privacy from the standpoint of pots breaking and everything else, but yeah, no, so the people living upstairs fully know what's going on downstairs, and that there'll be people out there drinking.
So
and
those that
carrying
live
on.
in the condos will be aware of the entertainment
correct.
area. So
Yes.
Yeah, so inside of an 84-acre tract, pretty close to being in the middle of that, you would, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, it's almost dead square in the middle. Yeah.
Okay, but it's not on this tonight, you're just making us aware of what.
That is
what
correct.
may be coming.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Woodson.
That's what I was.
There you go.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem asked the question because I wanted Mr. Whitman to know it's not on for tonight, but I appreciate you bringing the information. And this is based on what we do with this ordinance right now. And if I'm not mistaken, Pam, isn't there some other things that need to be done with this one before you bring it forward? Okay. But thank you for coming today and giving us a
pleasure.
heads up.
Thank
But
you.
this has to come at another date because it needs to have some other guidelines and rules and conditions there in it. But
Yep.
thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Whiteman.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to say to Chris, I had the opportunity to travel to Jackson, Mississippi, and I stayed at an embassy suite in Ridgeland. And I've been talking to them about this entertainment thing that they have, just like what you described.
Yes.
And I've been talking to you for 2 years about that, right?
Well, you're late because we could have built it 2 years ago,
Yeah.
but you had to let
Well,
COVID happen.
But I just wanted to point out that I've been to a place like what you described and loved it, and I've been talking to staff about that place. We gotta do that. And I started to send them to Jackson, Mississippi to see it, but it's, you just described for me what I've been talking to them about for more than 2 years.
Yeah, so Mr. City Manager, if you would like to come out and take a tour of the location, please give me a call, and I'll personally walk you around the space.
All right, Mr. Whiteman. Thank you. It's
Thank
good
you.
to see you again.
Yes, sir.
That's all the hands I saw. No,
All
Counselor
right,
Woodson.
Mr. Wolverton. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Ed Wolverton, 25 West 10th Street with Uptown Columbus Incorporated.
I think Counselor Woodson was hoping you would put the bow on this tonight.
Yes. Have you had the opportunity to meet with your board now or your head of your organization of Uptown Columbus to decide on the cups or the stickers and how they will be distributed and the cost? Because in the public hearing that we had, I asked you to please go back and have this ready by the time we vote on it so that the constituents will feel comfortable to know exactly what's going to happen. I also heard a lot about security and things like that, but I do know that the merchants pay an extra tax to ensure the safety of that community. I know CSU is a partner with you because I see them. I haven't seen the military much, but I know they're also a partner in Uptown. And I wanted to see where you are and what do you need to bring this forward so that we can at ease some of these concerns. Because the whole idea when Uptown was established was to have the Purple People, the extra police, CSU police, and the military to ensure the safety in a family environment. Those things should have not changed. That should be still the same priority because the merchants are paying for that. And I've heard several pros and cons about it. So this is my reason for asking you to come forward to hear Uptown's plan because these things should be in place now. It shouldn't be no different. And so I wanted you to speak on that, please.
Certainly. You mentioned several different things, so let me start with the basics in terms of the public safety and the extra cleanliness. That is done through the Business Improvement District. It is a special assessment district on property owners within the Uptown District. That money is controlled by our Business Improvement District Board of Directors. And that group directs what we call our Purple People, which is our clean team, and we also have a team of ambassadors. So they do extra cleaning in the day, 7 days a week, and then we also have extra security that's provided by them. They are not licensed police officers, they do not carry weapons, but they do serve as another set of eyes and ears for police officers. That team works 7 days a week, basically from about 6 in the morning till roughly about 11 o'clock at night. So they're providing all those services through that. In addition to that, Uptown employs an off-duty police officer 7 nights a week from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. to keep an extra eye on the district during those critical evening hours, especially during the dinner time and as people are wandering to theaters and such. And then Uptown also provides extra security on Tuesday nights, Friday nights, Thursday nights, and Saturday nights. Late night security, again, that's paid for through this bid tax, and that is off-duty police officers, a team of usually 6 officers that are doing extra patrols from 11:30 at night until 3:30 in the morning. So that gives you a little bit of framework of some of the services that are layered on to the security issues and to the cleanliness issues. So in terms of the Uptown Board, so there is a provision in the draft ordinance that has Uptown selecting what those cups would be. We have not had an opportunity as a board to meet on that. Our board is about 22 people, so we do have regularly scheduled meetings, and we do have our executive committee meeting this week, but that's going to be Thursday. In talking privately to our chair, there was a sense we should involve the entire board in that discussion. And so whether we'll do a special call meeting or wait until our regular meeting with the full board, which because of the holidays won't be until the first week of December.
So the special call, so the meeting is gonna be with the executive board and the
Thursday,
board
yes, ma'am.
on Thursday?
Yes,
This
ma'am.
coming Thursday?
This coming Thursday, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is that open to the public or just to the board members?
Just to the board.
Okay. All right. And during that meeting, the conversation of how the cups if it's gonna be cups or stickers will be determined then, the cost and how it will be distributed?
I do not think that's I'll have that answer for you on Thursday or Friday. No, ma'am. I think.
Why?
Well, the preference of our board chair at the moment is that we should involve the entire board. I mentioned 22 people that are part of that decision-making body. And
But I thought you said.
they meet basically every other month, but because of the holiday, for Thanksgiving, they pushed that meeting into December.
I thought earlier you had mentioned that that meeting was going to include your executive board and the board?
No, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Okay.
If I did, I misspoke. It's just the executive committee been meeting this week.
Well, what are the chances of having a special call meeting? Because this is important. People are paying Uptown. People go to Uptown. People expect Uptown to represent them. And if this is something that the merchants are asking for, it should be a responsibility of Uptown to call a special meeting because they're patrons. The people that pay for Uptown to exist are asking for this. So I would say it would be very irresponsible if you didn't call a special call meeting and have the board presented or have the executive board to make a decision by the time we go back to the second reading. Because it's not fair if it comes where we need to vote, but we can't vote because we're waiting on Uptown, which Uptown represents the merchants. It's not fair to the merchants. As you heard tonight, there's many merchants and patrons that want this. So I would highly suggest, or probably your merchants need to start ringing all your board members' phone numbers like they would do council. When there's an issue in council and they want our attention, guess what the public do? They call all our phones and tell us the importance. Maybe, your merchants need to do the same thing. And I think the young lady, I'm gonna call her a young lady from Virgil, I think she said she had like 200 and some signature. Maybe those 200 and some signatures need to let the board know the importance of this to happen. So I'm just suggesting you, I know it's being recorded, I'm pretty sure they'll look at it. I'm
Yes,
pretty
ma'am.
sure
Much like the city manager, I can't make them do that, but they can.
But you can
themselves.
suggest it.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
And the merchants and the patrons have the right to call them and say, voice their opinion just the same way they have the right to call us when there's a situation. When something happens in the city, regardless if it's the city, the school board, Uptown, don't matter where it is, we get all the phone calls, we get it. When you accept a position in the board, you accept that responsibility to answer to those that call you. And this is very important to the audience behind you. If you turn around and you look, these are your constituents, like they are our constituents.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you can't make it happen, just like the city manager can, but you can pick up the phone and say, we got a problem. We need to have a special call meeting, or we need to figure out how do we resolve this. We have a Zoom call. You try to, just like the city manager does, he tries to find a way to get that information to all of us, to have that discussion so that we can resolve the issues. And that's what I'm asking of you. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just asking you to please do just like my city manager would do. Pick up that phone, start calling them. And I would tell the people in the audience, start calling the board. Your phone numbers are not private when you're on the board. Your emails are not private. So let's get this ball going, because the concern is, how are these cups going to be distributed? What's the cost? Who's responsible? The security. But you already mentioned all the security that Uptown has. Chief also already mentioned how he can serve better and do a good job because it's in a contained area. So the only people holding this up is Uptown. Uptown's the only one that's holding it up now, between now and a vote. So Uptown needs to figure out, how do they meet, how do they make that decision to bring it back to us so that when we vote, we had answered every question that was answered today. And that's the only question I can see. Unless my colleagues or anybody could see different, the only question I didn't see answered today was about the cups.
Yes, and just so you're aware, the board chairman was in fact here for the council meeting that this was initially brought up a couple weeks ago. So the board chair was in the audience, and I attended both public sessions that were held. I also provided copies of the draft ordinance to all the stakeholders that are on our mailing list.
And I appreciate that, and I thank you for you doing your job and you're doing it well. You just got to put a little bit more pressure on them because we need this by the next reading. Okay? And
ma'am.
thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Ed. Counselor Tucker?
Yes, I was listening to Counselor Thomas when she referred to bringing it back. I think you said in 12 months. Did you say 12 months? My question is in reference to High Side, and not saying that I love Chris, but not saying he's gonna sell. But what happens, if a person sells, does it still remain a entertainment district? Does it transfer with ownership? Like, what's the process when we make that High Side district? So,
I think Counselor Crabb can tell you it probably runs with the land. It doesn't go with the owner. It just, I think once I think that's an overreach.
Yeah, once the boundaries are set by the ordinance, it would cover any successor in interest who buys property in that
I mean,
district.
I hate to be devil's advocate on this, but I'm just thinking about that, like, in something that has occurred on Broadway where it's a not so great tenant, okay? What if we have a situation like that?
That lasts as long as council wants it to last. If they want to remove it, they'll remove it.
Yeah. So it could come back to council and remove it from being an entertainment district.
Or you can put some type of stipulation like what you
Oh, we
said,
can
Councilor Crabb.
put a little thing there that, council has the authority to
To revert back.
To revert back from it being an
I think you've got
entertainment
that.
district.
You have
You
that
got
authority.
that authority anyway.
Yeah. We're gonna add the 12,
I was
we'll
just
add the
asking.
12-month review, but you can visit it anytime to amend it and take out any block you want.
Yep.
Just a question.
Okay. I think that's all the questions. Any other questions? Any comments? Yes, sir.
My name's Robert Battle, 1315 Elmwood Drive, Columbus, Georgia. I just briefly wanted to speak on the issue concerning Uptown Inc. We, as a group of businesses, have met a number of times, and the cups and the stickers have been brought up over the years since 2018. And there are some concerns from the business side having that stipulation on there. Not that we're against it. I've actually written up this whole, it's called the backup plan. And this is basic, and I'll email it to everybody. This is worst case scenario. This is nobody's satisfied, and this is what we have to do to get this passed. But I just want to make the comment that everything is very expensive right now, and it's only going up. Operating as a business has only gotten harder. A place like Frank's, who we're very close to, Ross, he's small. He's just starting. He started in the middle of a pandemic. For somebody like that to have to already make an investment into plastic cups, it gets expensive. There's a lot of logistics involved there. If we make Uptown Inc. responsible for holding these cups, watering these cups, or stickers, or whatever that might be, they have to find a place to store them. We have to hold them. We have to buy them. If they're branded or specially printed, there's an additional cost. And all of those things are a cost or a tax to participate. And we're trying to avoid that. And that's the only point I'm trying to make here when it comes to Uptown and their involvement or responsibility. I know we have a lot of questions surrounding enforcement and whatnot, but when we look at other cities and what they're doing, the ordinance that we have on the books is pretty sound. It reflects a lot of what other cities are doing. I feel like it will work. If we're gonna do something like what Councilor Thomas is suggesting, 12 months, I think we can take a time to review and see how it operates without that stipulation, because if, say this passes at the next reading or whatever, we then have to figure out that whole situation, the ordering, the timeline, who knows how long those cups take to get in, what that looks like. I feel like that's just this whole other complicated situation we're adding to something that really isn't that complicated. Should it be a problem, that's something we could review in the 12-month period when that comes up. I feel like then maybe we get to the backup plan. again, I'll share that with everybody. I think we're all more than happy with doing this if we have to. The idea is to avoid this so that we're not burdened with an additional cost. The goal here is to increase revenue for all the businesses and increase traffic in the uptown area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Battle. Counselor Crabb.
Thank you. I do think that the businesses should have, I don't think we should over-regulate the businesses. There's something, we need to do what we need to do, but then allow the businesses to work within what we're trying to do to help them and not hurt them. I think these businesses may want to do things a little bit differently, each one of them, and so give them that freedom to do that, and then we can always come back in that 12-month period and say, then we can start slapping hands. But let's try and give them the freedom to work it out amongst themselves. They seem to be very successful at doing that.
Thank you. Counselor Thomas?
And I believe, Counselor Crabb, that in the ordinance itself, it says you can have up to a 16-ounce cup, and it has to be shatterproof. And other than that, the businesses ought to be able to figure out, if I don't want but a 10-ounce cup, I can have a 10-ounce cup. But that's not something that I think Uptown regulates. That's something that is regulated by the ordinance itself, in my estimation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right.
Okay.
Any other comments?
We'll bring that back on second reading as amended, subject to additional discussion or further amendment. All right, thank y'all for being here. The next item we've got, Mayor, would remove the residency requirement for Muskogee County on the certain pension plan appointees.
Let's give them just a second to clear out.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, this is housekeeping. Counselor Woodson is asking that the named members have an exception to the Muskogee County residency requirement, named members of the pension board. It's just up for discussion. Any questions on that?
Yes, Counselor Thomas.
Why would we remove the residency requirement on the pension board and not, they're dealing with the Muskogee County, I don't understand the impetus for this. Perhaps if Counselor Woodson could.
Well, and I'll add a little something to that, is chairing the pension board. Sometimes it's hard to find people with that particular expertise that are going to be able to understand, number one, but then really make some solid decisions with what we do with our investments on our pension funds. And I know we've had a couple of folks, attorneys and tax attorneys, that have been extremely valuable. And I think one or two of them has recently moved into Harris County. So I think the idea was just to have that flexibility.
Well, I will tell you that I am strongly opposed to any board in our government, that appointed board that is not made up of residents of Muskogee County. I know that the pension board has consultants that come and deal with the pension board and give them advice. Not all of those folks live in Muskogee County, but a member of a board that is appointed by this council, I believe, must live in Muskogee County. And I would be very much opposed to this ordinance.
Yes, ma'am. Counselor Woodson.
Yes, this ordinance was brought to my attention by the board. And similar to what the mayor was saying, some of our employees don't live in Muskogee County, but they're our employees. And they are getting their pension and they want to be able to participate. But now because they chose to move into, let's say, Phoenix City, they're not allowed to participate in the pension board. So that was the reason was given to me. And if I'm not mistaken, Clerk of Council, don't we have another employee board that has no residential restriction? Can you please tell me which one that was? I think there was one or two.
Hang on.
I'm sorry, I've been
Madam Clerk?
having senior moments, so.
Yes, Council Woodson, the Retirees Health Benefits Committee does allow or remove the residency requirement. And so we do have some employee-based boards that do not require that the person serving reside in Muskogee County. We also do that for the veterinarians on the Animal Control Advisory Board.
So there are a couple of them. I would ask you to do your research and reach out to the board members, and they can also let you know their feelings. But this was not something I woke up and said, hey, I want to do this today. There was
And also
a
the
request.
Employees Benefits Committee as well.
Which one? Say the ones again.
Employees Benefits Committee, the Retirees Health Benefits Committee, Animal Control Advisory Board.
So precedent has already been set, and we're not asking for all the boards, we're just asking for the pension board.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I appreciate the subject matter being brought up. I would feel better, instead of lifting the resident requirement on the whole thing, maybe limit it to two, one or two positions, something like that, and then you could, it wouldn't be overwhelmingly out of county type, out of city type membership. You would have flexibility to have one or two on there.
And I don't think there'll be a problem with that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mayor.
We can amend that to say, two non-resident, members,
Yes, no more than two.
no more than two.
Mhm.
Can you do
All
that,
right, you wanna,
Kristen?
let's get that motion made that it would be no more than two non-residents fit in this category.
All right, I would like to make that amendment.
All right, there's a motion to amend it so that the number of out-of-county residents on boards are limited to two. Is there a second? Second. All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? No. All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5,
All against?
Okay.
4.
Inconclusive.
All right. Well, we'll bring it back. Do you want to continue the first reading or just bring it back on second? What's your pleasure on that?
We can bring it back on second.
Okay, we can always add any amendment.
All right, Counselor Crabb?
What's the situation of this right now? Do we have members falling off of this board because they're not, they no longer live in Muskogee County?
I'm sorry, Council Crab, what was the question?
So what's the situation of this board right now? Do we have, is it fully staffed or whatever you want to call it? Or do we have vacancies because there are people that have moved out of Muskogee County?
Okay, Councilor Crab, currently we do not have any vacancies on this board. We do have a board term that is coming up, and this particular member does not reside in Muskogee County.
So is that why we're bringing this forward, because of that one member?
That's part of the reason, yes.
Can we make something where we appoint these members?
Yes.
And so at the time of reappointment, like in this situation, maybe we have a vote on that particular member if we choose to
Yes,
Okay.
Council Crab, we would not be able to
Still
do
got
that if
Can't
this
we-
residency requirement is still in the ordinance. If that's part of the general board's requirement that they be Muskogee County residents, we would not be able to, once that appointment comes up, make that, arbitrarily just make that change.
So, okay, so it's really hasn't been a problem until just this one person. Okay,
Yes,
Thank
that's
you.
correct.
All right, we'll bring that back, subject to further amendment then. The last ordinance we've got would be the Keep Columbus Beautiful Commission amendment to revise membership positions and redefine appointment process for the executive director. They have, I think, 3-year terms. Any questions about this one? This housekeeping measure. Well, we got to bring it
First
back
reading.
in 2 weeks. We'll vote on it in 2 weeks.
We have members from Keep Columbus Beautiful here. We appreciate y'all's patience.
Oh,
and
yeah. Thank y'all for being here. Mayor, we've already passed item 9. Item 10 is the pay plan discussion. That's the resolution. We would like to get Ms. Hollowell, Director of Human Resources, back out front. And this is a resolution council requested, of course, come back before any pay plan went into effect. This would be November 12th, 2022 pay period. But we'll let Ms. Hollowell comment and anybody can ask questions.
Good afternoon, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council. So I have a brief presentation that I want to share with you with regard to our recommendation to implement our timeline for implementing the new pay plan that you have already adopted. I want to provide you with an update of the employee appeals, and then finally ask for your approval of the council resolution that allows us to move forward or continue to move forward with the implementation of the new pay plan. So what I provided here is just the timeline here on implementing of the new pay plan. And then so as of September the 13th, council did adopt the new pay plan. And then, so immediately upon adoption of the new pay plan, from September the 14th up until October the 20th, our consultant, Evergreen Solutions and Human Resources, have reviewed the appeals that I've talked to you all about, some 400 or so appeals that we've talked about. The file review, the personnel file, that's been reviewed and updated as needed. We've also had some meetings with department heads to discuss some of the appeals that the consultant was considering recommending. So from last week, the week of October the 17th, our IT department has begun preliminary testing of the pay plan in our HRM payroll system. They've continued that preliminary testing this week of the new pay plan in our HRM payroll system. And today, October the 25th, we do have a resolution on the agenda that the city attorney just mentioned. This is the final recommendation, the final resolution to implement the pay plan. And so with council's approval, should you approve the resolution today, the pay plan, the new pay plan, will be implemented on November the 12th. So what that means, that is a window for us in terms of the start of a new pay period the start of our new FLSA cycle. And I've got the finance director here and the IT director, and I'm gonna ask them to speak on this in this next slide. But if council agrees to implement the new pay plan with our effective date of November the 12th, then on November the 25th, the new pay plan adjustments will be reflected in the employees' paychecks that they will receive. They'll be paid on November the 25th, and they will receive their first adjustment in their paychecks on November the 25th. And I highlighted here that that's Thanksgiving holiday. That week, Thursday and Friday, typically that's a holiday for us, will be our Thursday and Friday. So that Friday is a payday that employees will receive their first check with that pay plan adjustments in it. So in terms of these, the recommendations here, I will talk about the appeals as I mentioned, but I wanted the finance director and IT just to talk about this option of implementing the pay plan on November the 12th, because there is a window for us, and there aren't very many windows like this that we are able to seize, and we want to be able to seize this opportunity. Notwithstanding that, should council decide that you don't want to go with what we're recommending is option 1, there is an alternate option that I want to share as well. But I'm going to ask Angelica just to talk a little bit about why this November 12th is the most optimum time to implement the pay plan.
Hello again. So as the HR director mentioned, we really only have a couple of windows to implement the pay plan with minimal issues in terms of the system that we have, our HRM payroll system. The optimum start date is November 12th, and that is because we have a lot of things going on in the HRM system. We just implemented a major system upgrade last week. We have another major system upgrade that we'll have to do, and it touches all systems, HRM, our HR system, our finance system, our budget system. Because they're all on the same platform, when we have a major system upgrade, all of these systems are impacted. We have another major system upgrade planned in December. We have to do this upgrade and do it on time because it contains the tax releases for this year that we'll need to have in place when we process W-2s and 1099s. We do have a deadline that we're federally required to meet in terms of getting out those W-2s and 1099s. We have until the end of January. So we have a very limited staff in terms of payroll staffing and HR and IT staff. It's really the same people that are implementing, all these various components of the project and managing this system. And so again, from a staffing standpoint, it is optimum for us to implement November 12th. Again, just have a lot of things going on in December. In addition to that major system upgrade that we'll have to do at some point in December, we are processing payroll 4 out of the 5 Fridays. So employees will receive a paycheck of some sort, pay of some sort, 4 out of the 5 Fridays in December. So that really, when we have to run payroll, that really takes away our ability to really get in the system, perform system maintenance, and with just that going on and us having to make sure that all of the deductions and deduction changes that happen during open enrollment are all in place before January. December is just a really busy month. So I just really wanted to stress the optimum date from a staffing standpoint in terms of getting this implemented. As the HR director mentioned, we do have an alternate date here that would be January 7th. That is the next sort of window where all of the FLSA cycles align. Those FLSA cycles are the cycles that we are required to follow in terms of how we pay overtime to our public safety personnel. And so it just makes the transition a lot smoother, a lot easier, a lot more manageable when all of the cycles align. So Forrest, I don't know if our IT director here, I don't know if he has anything else to add.
I just wanted to reiterate what Angelica said, and really the big news is that in January, you know, the W-2s, 1099s, but also we have to implement all of the new system changes that we just did for open enrollment. Those have to move forward. And January is really one of our busier months because of the mandates that the federal government puts on us. So the window of opportunity in November is much better because we're not pushed against the federal deadlines that we would have to follow if we pushed it into January. So, and like she said, our payroll cycles, and I think everyone understands those, it's the windows don't line up every month because some cycles are 21 days, some cycles are 2 weeks, some cycles are monthly. So you've got to get where they all line up together, or most line up to make it most convenient. And by convenient, I mean convenient so that the math works, so that everybody gets the proper pay at the end of the cycle. So really, I have nothing else to add. Everything Angelica has said and everything that Retha Howell said kind of gives why the November date is a better option for not just IT, but for IT, HR, and finance.
So thank you, Madam Finance Director and IT Director, for helping me with that portion. So that's our recommended implementation timeline. November 12th, as we mentioned, is optimum, but there is an alternate implementation date should council decides or elects to choose the alternate versus the recommended. So in terms of the appeals timeline, and I wanted to make sure I share with council an update on that. And in terms of us bringing back the resolution for council to approve today, one of the things that I took away from that September 13th meeting, and after reviewing the council meeting again, one of the primary things that I took away from it is council wanted an update on the appeal status because they wanted to make sure that the employees were taken care of, or at least their appeals were heard, and Evergreen HR had reviewed those appeals. So that's why I wanted to make sure we had an update for you on that today. So with the appeals processes, beginning September the 6th, employees were able to start submitting appeals to Evergreen, and they did so. We asked employees to complete submitting their appeals by September the 16th, and primarily they did. There are a few employees trickled in terms of appeals since that time, but by and large, we're still at the number that we reported to you last time. And then on October the 10th, October the 11th, we did have meetings with some department heads related to the appeals because the consultant was preparing to make recommendations related to the appeals, and wanted to make sure we consulted with the department heads where those adjustments would be impacted. And then on October the 20th, the Evergreen, they completed their review of all of those 400 plus appeals. They completed that process. And then on October the 24th, those updated recommendations were sent out to all of those 400 plus employees. So they have received Evergreen's recommendation as it relates to the appeals that they've submitted. Now, all employees, as we move toward, and depending on council's in terms of the date that we implement the pay plan, but all employees will receive a final recommendation letter for those, whether they had an adjustment since they received their initial preliminary letter or not, but all employees will receive a final recommendation letter so that they know when the pay plan is implemented that we decide is November the 12th, so that they know that when they get their paycheck, they've got their letter from Evergreen that says, this is your pay grade, this is your job title, and this is your recommended pay. So they'll have that letter in their hand to know this is what's being recommended, and they can see that that's what's going to be in their paycheck. And in terms of the analysis, as I mentioned, those total 476 appeals that were submitted by employees to Evergreen. I mentioned to you that 260 of those were general government employees, 216 of those were public safety employees. And then there was another 75 appeals that were submitted with insufficient information in that they did not request anything, they didn't ask for anything. So that left about 400 appeals for Evergreen to review that related to an employee's hire date, their class date, job title, their base pay, and maybe they were just requested a reevaluation of their position. So Evergreen completed those appeals, as I mentioned, on October the 20th, and on October 24th, those employees received a letter of recommendation from Evergreen. Of those 400 or so appeals that were submitted, Evergreen approved 25 of those appeals, meaning that a pay adjustment, a grade adjustment, or a title adjustment was made for 25 of those employees. There's another 60 or so adjustments that were made, adjustments in pay grades. And a lot of this had to do with internal equity related to the CDL drivers. As you all recall, for CDL drivers, we determined that they would make the minimum of $21 an hour. So that had an internal impact as it relates to some of the division managers, crew leaders, and other supervisors within those departments. So there were some additional adjustments made for internal equity. That happened primarily within the Public Works Department, the Parks and Rec Department, some adjustment made within the E911, and then at the Trade Center. So some of those adjustments were very incremental, and some of them were more significant. So we're talking about a total of about 85 adjustments out of the 400 appeals that were submitted to Evergreen. With those appeals, I can tell you that not all of those 400 plus employees were pleased with the recommendation that they received from Evergreen. I can tell you that because some employees who received their appeals have already reached out to me. They've reached out to Evergreen and said, I still don't think this was right. I still want my job to be reviewed. I don't think my pay is accurate. How can I appeal this even further? What council has stated that it wanted is for employees to be able to make an appeal for up to 2 years. And that is what is being extended to employees. Employees are able to submit a request to Human Resources. Human Resources will package their request along with any details related to their request for an appeal. We'll forward that to the city manager for his review and determination, and the employees that request to appeal will receive a written response from the city manager. And again, those employees, they have up to 2 years, as council has requested, to be able to submit an appeal related to the recommendation that they will receive. Now, having said that, as council, and we talked about this in September and the last time that I came and talked with you, the appeals process, we are where we are with it now. Evergreen having sent those 400 plus recommendations back to employees, and they've received those. We're also on a track here with implementation of the pay plan. We're ready to go with council's approval. But this is where we are right now in terms, and we said that we would do these things simultaneously. We wouldn't stop implementation for sake of dealing with the appeals. And you see where we are with the appeals right now. And I've shared with you where we are with the implementation process. So just a couple other things that are still on the table. I also talked with you a couple of weeks ago with regard to the public safety education incentive. HR is still reviewing that. We expect to complete our analysis of that within the next couple of weeks, because we also will consult with the departments to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what HR sees and if the department sees something different than what we see. So we're still working on that analysis, but we expect to have that done relatively soon. There's just some other things, and I mentioned this so that when we come back and you see an ordinance related to the new pay plan, because with the UGA pay plan that we have right now, there were certain ordinances that were added over the years. And HR is looking at all of those ordinances, which is not a lot, but there are a few ordinances out there that were passed that had to do specifically with the UGA pay plan. And so what we need to do is look at those ordinances and see if they need to be transitioned so that they comply with the new pay plan. So we're working on that. I don't expect that to be very many. I'm only aware of a couple right now, but we'll be working on those, and those will be cleanup ordinances that we will bring back. So that is all that I have right now in terms of the implementation and the appeals review process, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have. I do have one last slide that I will share with council, but I wanted to answer any questions that you have right now related to implementation and with the appeals process.
Counselor House?
Thank you, Mayor. HR Director Hollowell, thank you very much for the presentation. I know you all have worked very hard to try to make this happen, and there's a lot of frustration here, there, and yonder about what's going on. So those 315 or so people that they're out there, they could continue the appeal process. It's 315 people whose appeals were not approved, basically, something like that.
Well, they
So-
didn't get what they requested.
Right. So if they choose to appeal, they've got 2 years till they could appeal, and that process would take it to the city manager for him to review,
Correct.
make a
That's what
decision.
council has
And that-
directed, and yes.
Okay, and that would include like those 2 people that you sent me a message today, 2 different incidents that I sent you that I admit I have not had an opportunity to read that and comprehend it.
Sure.
So I may have to ask you an additional question so that I comprehend what you told me.
Sure.
But that's part of that 315 or so people that may or may not appeal again, right?
Yes.
Or there may be some added to that.
Well, anybody else could too. Sure, okay. All right, okay, thank you.
Counselor Crab?
Thank you. How can you implement this if you have those 2 items still on the table? Because, you know, the education aspect you said was baked in and that you were gonna bring it back to us. You know, that's going to change the amount of funds. I mean, that's gonna change the numbers.
Well, yes, there will be a cost associated with it as relates to the education incentive for public safety. There is a cost associated with it, and when we bring back our review of the analysis, it will include that cost. Now, that's not gonna hinder implementation because the education incentive is a separate pay line. It doesn't impact the employee's base pay, which is what we're talking about with the implementation of the new pay plan. We're talking about the employee's base pay. The education incentive is a separate pay line aside from their base pay.
Right, but you just said that there is going to be a cost
Yes.
part of that. And I have a hard time, you know, voting to implement something when we haven't seen the true cost of the implementation of it. That was talked about, I think, over a month ago, that was gonna come back to us. And we haven't seen anything about it. And, you know, we need to know what it's gonna cost. I mean, that's our part of the,
The city manager?
And so, Mayor, of course, when the pay classification compensation study was brought forward, all of that was baked in. I think that's the word you've been using. And so the pay plan was brought forward with, that's what it is. And so we heard from public safety officials with education prior to the UGA pay plan implementation in 2006. You heard from them. And I think you wanted us to do something about the education. And so that's what we said we would do. And because it was, I mean, if it had been if it had not been baked in to what they are, the proposed pay, we would have had a final number at that time. And so we said, we will go back and we will identify every person who had education prior to the UGA plan implementation in 2006. And we will pull their education out and we would compensate them for it, at least propose to you, because you were asking us, because they were coming to you, that we would pay them for that education. And of course, that's what we're doing, and we told you then, there will be a cost. And so if you proceed forward with the pay plan and this separate line item with education, they will get that education pay that's not baked in. If it takes them longer to complete that process, then it would be retroactive to the pay plan implementation.
And that depends on what council wants.
So if
they want it to be retroactive to the implementation of
The
the pay
November
plan
12th, yeah.
on September 13th when council adopted. So it could be
Well,
retroactive to them.
but it doesn't matter what it costs. We said we were gonna pay.
It's not a significant amount, is that what you're saying, is that?
I don't know.
We don't know if
We don't
it's
know.
significant enough.
So then the option would be if it's more than you wanna pay, don't do it. That's your option. Don't do it. But we said that we were gonna, because they came to you and we heard from you, we were gonna go and determine that pay, and whatever it is, we're gonna pay them for their education. And so the only option when we bring the number forward, if it's larger than what you wanna see, council member can say, it's already baked in, we're not gonna do it. That's what you could decide. Because we were not going to do this. But for your hearing from public safety folk and wanting us to do it, and we're doing it. So if you don't want us to continue down that road, I mean, we could stop it right now. But I think that's what they were insisting, and we basically agreed that we would pay them for their education, and it would not be baked in, as it has been baked in since 2006, right?
Yes.
This has been baked in since 2006. They haven't been getting a separate line item. And now, when she is done and you bring it back, they're gonna get a separate line item.
So they will be compensated
Absolutely.
for the.
Unless you decide we're
I
gonna
think-
keep it the way it is.
I think that's what council had asked for.
That's right.
Okay, so now you've complied with what the request was?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the pleasure of council?
But we had asked for it to be presented to us how much the cost was going to be. Because I know that Counselor Davis said that he did not want to go outside of the perimeter, the cost perimeter that we had already set. And so we needed to know what that cost was to make the decision,
What?
about, I don't understand how we could flip this switch yet without knowing the cost of some things. And I had asked about, I know several of the counselors were concerned that the longevity was not acknowledged.
Why don't you
They
put that slide up?
they had, there's some people that have worked here for 20, 30 years, and that longevity has, just disappeared.
So if you're
And
worried.
so I had asked for that to be looked into
Okay.
and brought back.
And we have that
And we
information.
haven't,
We're gonna show it to you. But if you're worried about what you're gonna pay for education for police, you certainly don't wanna see this next slide.
why was that not presented to us during the presentation?
It was.
It was.
Okay.
And I think the record will reflect, you can go back and pull the video. When we said, I sat here and said, we were gonna look at education, and it doesn't matter what it will cost to pay them, we're gonna pay them. That's what was said. And so but we can, if we don't want to pay them if the number is too big, just like these numbers, you could simply say, well, we don't want to pay for education. Talk about these numbers. If you want to just kind of pay for tenure,
Right.
tell us what we've got.
Sure. Well, several counselors, including Counselor Crabb and Counselor House especially, asked about, because when we presented the class parity, part of that presentation was we needed a pay plan that we could afford, and we needed a pay plan that we could implement and sustain. And so from an administration standpoint, with consultation with our consultant, we ultimately presented the option of a class parity. And that's what we've been working with over these months, is that particular option of a class parity. And to further make sure that we could implement and sustain, we also added a 25% cap, meaning no adjustment could be more than 25%. And we implemented these zones, which also helped pare the cost down for the class parity. And today, for the implementation of the pay plan that you've adopted, we're at $13.6 million, and that's for general government and for public safety. But I've got some other options here, and these come straight from the consultant in terms of other options that council could look at and consider if it wanted to provide more of an award to employees for their longevity. And so I'll just run through these here and get down to the very last one, which it sounded like some council members wanted, which was to be able to provide longevity pay for employees for all of their tenure. But the second one from the top there is the class parity that we're implementing based on your approval with no cap, the no 25% cap, but with a zone. So it still pares it down a little bit, but that one's at, the cost to implement that is at $14.85 million. If we still stayed with class parity, but we took away the cap, the 25% cap, no cap, and no zones, that cost would be, you'd be able to provide more of an adjustment for employees. That cost is at $15.9 million. If we adopted a hybrid approach, the hybrid approach is a split between the class parity and the tenure. It looks at class parity, but it also gives the employees more tenure. It doesn't give them 100% credit for their tenure, but it gives them some tenure. So you've got the hybrid as an option. You'd have no caps and no zone. The cost of that is $20.7 million. And then another option related to the hybrid option is you implement that with a 25% cap and no zones. The cost of that is $17.5 million. And then the option here on tenure, which I will say is not recommended by the consultant, no cap, no zones. You give employees full credit for all of their years of tenure. The cost to implement the tenure option is at $25 million. So,
And that's before you go back to 2006, pre-2006, where education was baked into their pay. So they haven't been paid for education since 2006, prior to 2006. But if what I think you heard, and when I run into officers, they want their education paid. And I think that's what you were hearing, then it came to us. And we said we would go back, and that's why she's going through the tedious process, dating back pre-2006 to see who's still here, who has education, and then we create a line for them and we pay them their education. If whatever that number is, if you want to choose any of these categories, if you want no cap on tenure, you want the bottom. No cap on tenure. And it'll cost you $25 million a year, and then you'll pay for education when you get done calculating for police. We simply can't afford it. And so the pay plan that came forward to council, everybody's not gonna like it, but we brought you what this government can pay for and sustain now and into the future. Then we talked about integrated waste. And someone said, well, you know, we needed $1 million to be able to go to where, and we didn't want that. And we talked about some millage in some other categories, and you didn't want that. We fixed all that. But we are bringing you what we believe this government can pay for and sustain. And if you want, and we can do any of those categories up there you want, as long as you feel we can pay for it.
Is that all, Counselor? Counselor Huff?
They finished with the education piece. I had another question. Go ahead.
A month, 2 weeks?
No.
2 months?
Within the next couple of weeks, if we got another council meeting in November.
I can't hear you, Retha.
I'm sorry. I think the next council
We're
meeting,
meeting November 8th and November 15th.
I will make sure that we have it by November the 8th.
And so, but the deal is, you know, if they approve this plan for November 12th and they get their check the week of Thanksgiving, you will be able to, if they are okay with it, put it in those paychecks that they would get by the 25th of November.
The education center?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can add that too.
Yeah, but, and again, I think if you go and pull, when we talked about the education piece, it was said that whatever it costs, that's what we're gonna pay to give them their money for education. That, anybody remember that? You don't remember that?
I do. I was a proponent of it.
I'll ask CCG TV to pull the video.
Counselor Huff?
Okay. Going back to comparisons and things that they did, Evergreen, my focal point right now, interest is, I had some comments from Public Works, I had some from Parks and Rec. So I'm still feeling some kind of way that they all work a lot of hours, but Parks and Rec are notorious for working weekends, 7 days a week. I see them at the complexes as far as softball, for Civic Center, whatever's going on around the area, downtown, uptown, wherever. So I was interested in knowing that, were they able to compare the division managers on both sides equally? Were they comparing the workers, everyday employees in their different capacities? Because it's rumored that one side works more than the other, but one side makes less than the other.
Well,
So are there any numbers to justify that?
Well, the study did not look specifically at one department maybe working more hours than another. It looked at the jobs for those departments, for those specific employees. What was their job, and how that compared internally and externally. So if someone has a job where they may work extra hours on the weekend versus another department, they didn't work as many hours, you know, that wasn't something that the study would have particularly considered. But let me just say this about what I think you're talking about, Councilor Huff, in terms of Parks and Rec and Public Works.
Well, and then you need to mention the Civic Center and the Trade Center as well, because they are in that category too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
work.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
all
Oh, yeah.
those.
They work weekends and holidays, when a lot of other people that maybe work the 8 to 5, they're doing their 8 to 5, and then the Civic Center, Trade Center, Parks and Rec, and obviously Public Safety, you know, they don't work a typical 8 to 5, so that's how, you know,
So,
This
and since we brought up Civic Center and Trade Center, was there any consideration that these people work
Well,
7 days? I mean, all times,
let me tell you
weekends?
what we count on.
Okay.
We count on those leaders, you know, when they work weekends like that, there's gonna be a break. I mean, you know, they could adjust hours and they're not come in, you know, Monday and Tuesday if there's nothing going on. And so in that industry, you've gotta, be flexible with your employees, and that's, we expect the leadership in those organizations to be flexible and work with those employees. When I was deputy city manager and filled in as interim director of the Civic Center, for example, I mean, I dealt with it firsthand, and I know Deputy City Manager Lisa Goodwin has done it multiple times. You tell those people when they work to midnight at a concert on Saturday night, don't come in here Monday.
Yeah.
And so you gotta work with them, and they understand the nature of, when you're in the entertainment business, as you know, I mean, you work crazy hours.
Right. So in this, did we give them enough money to implement the way you're speaking of right now, as far as those 4 industries to pay their people equally across the board?
I think they gave them, you know, Retha, you can respond, but I think they evaluated the jobs based on the internal, external market, and then knowing that they gotta be flexible.
Right. And it
I mean,
considers-
we're here tonight, and we may be here to midnight, but we got some people here that are working. They worked all day today.
Right.
And so if they're not at work at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning and they don't have meetings scheduled, they should have controlled their schedule that they don't have early morning meetings. I expect them to adjust their hours. It's fair to them.
Yeah.
Worked all day today.
I mean, I get that, and I feel for them, but I know they go home Friday, they go home. I'm talking about those that be coming in Saturday and Sunday. I get it, and it's, everybody has to adjust, I get it. I'm just concerned about whether in those particular 4 industries that you mentioned, departments, that we give them as a council, you know, did we give the city manager enough money to work with in order for them to be equal across the board, that those that work Saturdays and Sundays, they get basically equal pay for what they do?
As I said, Councilor Hub, not only a lot of our departments, public safety is a very good one. They work shift work, and they work weekends, they work holidays. So do those departments that you mentioned in Public Works, Parks and Rec, Civic Center, the Trade Center. And this didn't just start happening. They've always worked that way. So to say, because they have these odd schedules, did we give them extra money because they work these odd schedules? The best response that I can give to you, Councilor Huff, is that their jobs, when they submitted their JTA and when Evergreen reviewed the job descriptions for every full-time regular employee with the city, in that job description, it describes what that person does. It describes it in details, the hours of work, their major duties, you know, the education, training, everything that's required in that job description. So the fact that they work weekends and holidays is already considered. And I use my word baked in, if you will, again. It's already considered. But in terms of Parks and Rec and Public Works, I do want to speak to that because you asked about the comparison of those two. And Evergreen talked about this, I think, once, maybe not here at this podium, but from one perspective, Public Works is, you know, is typically a bigger outfit than your Parks and Rec department. So the question was, how can they be equal? They're just 2 different departments with 2 different missions, but in terms of trying to make sure that we have internal equity between Public Works and Parks and Rec, the consultant has reviewed that more than once, and we've had meetings with the departments, and I think the departments definitely with the final recommendations that those employees receive, we'll see some adjustments based on what the consultant reviewed and discussed with those department directors.
Because those two, all four are vital. But I ask about those two because in what we've been talking about in promoting Columbus and doing what we do, they're vital
Absolutely.
because they work extended hours all the time, weekends and everything. So, did we ever get any clarification on division managers across those two?
Yes. Now, I'm saying yes to you, Councilor Huff. You saw the number of appeals that were approved here. So of that 400 plus employees are not probably gonna be happy because we weren't able to say yes to 400 plus employees. But to answer your question, yes, Parks and Rec and Public Works, and I mentioned that in my slide here, those were the two departments that received the most adjustments through this review.
Okay, and over the next 2 years, we have a chance to fix some of that, repair
Well,
it?
the employees will have an opportunity to appeal,
Right.
and that will be reviewed.
Okay, I'm just trying, it sounds good, but I'm getting a lot of feedback, trying to figure out. Whereas we have a certain number of employees that will get raises and it will help them to live better. We have a certain number of employees that work on a need basis, to pay bills, to eat, they need their money. That's what I'm trying to find, the ones that need, are we taking care of them?
Well, my response again, Councilor Huff, is to the best of what I believe the consultant could do. And based on our consultation with the departments, what has been requested to bring forward, which we brought forward and council has adopted, is a pay plan that we can implement and sustain. Is it gonna make everybody 100% happy the way they want to be happy? Probably not.
Okay, thank you.
So, I do need the finance director to make one clarification about the pay period.
Yes, the pay periods. So we still receive pay 4 Fridays out of the 5 Fridays in December, pay of some sort. We get 3 regular paychecks we get one on the 2nd, one on the 16th, and one on the 30th. Then there's the sick bonus checks on the 9th that we'll process. So that's 4 out of the 5 Fridays we'll receive pay. But the timeline referenced that we'll get paid on November 25th, and I believe the thought was that that is when the pay period ends. So the pay period actually ends November 25th for a December 2nd payday. So it'll actually be right after Thanksgiving that they will receive the pay.
Give those December dates again, if you will.
Yes, ma'am, we receive a paycheck, full biweekly paycheck on December 2nd. The next one is December 16th, and then December 30th. And then there's the sick bonus checks, if council approves, that'll be paid out on December 9th.
So there will be four checks to employees in December.
In December, for the 5 Fridays, employees will receive pay, most employees.
So I think we're at the question, obviously, the appeals process will continue. And the remaining appeals that didn't perhaps get what they were looking for, they can still follow that process to be further considered. New appeals may come in, and that can happen up to a 2-year period, as we talked about. And so that won't stop if you approve implementation of the pay plan. The appeals process will continue. And so we just want to be clear about that. But in order to get employees their new pay in the pay period that ends on the 25th of November, that will appear in their December check, we're asking that you approve the resolution. And if not, then it will be late January before this happens. And so, you tell us whether you want them to get a check in the December 2nd paycheck while the appeals process continues. They can run, you can do both. You can continue the appeals process, but those employees who are getting results from the pay study would get their money. And Mayor, we're asking council to approve the resolution.
Would require a motion. There is none.
Okay, so then employees will not receive anything this year. It will be next year sometime. Whenever council is ready, you let us know and we'll bring it back. So employees need to know they're not getting any results this time. Thank you.
Okay, we've still got another item, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Go on. This is an add-on, be number 11 on our agenda. Around the table, you've got a resolution concerning the Continental Carbon Corporation. This would oppose any extension of the consent decree between Continental Carbon, Inc. and the United States of America. They've had one extension from December 31, 2020, when they paid a fine, through December 31, 2022. They're now seeking another extension, and this resolution would oppose that.
Motion second to approve the add-on resolution. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's approved.
Thank you. That's all we had listed, Mayor.
All right. Next is public agenda. Mrs. Ladeni has been very patient. Ms. Jennifer Ladeni regarding a request to add NowComp and comprehensive support waiver program and planning list to the legislative agenda. So you'll have 5 minutes.
Yes, I know it's a mouthful, isn't it?
You know the drill, right? So
Yep.
if you'll give your name and address, we're in good shape.
All right, Jennifer Lee Denny. My address is 2440 Diane Avenue. And I'm here just to ensure that hopefully we get the now comp waiver and issues possibly put on the legislative agenda. I'm here today, this time, on behalf of myself and my family, as well as 89 others in Muskogee County affected by the challenges with the planning list. I'm here just to ask y'all to be allies to help us with these challenges. We need more voices in this, and I don't know, sometimes it feels like we're not getting anywhere. So to be clear, what it is Medicaid covers a multitude of services, primarily medical. What the now and comp waivers are, they're two separate waivers. They extend the scope of services. This is to prevent our loved ones from being institutionalized. Some of these services are in-home or in community and consist of stuff like community living supports, where you go out into the community and actually do things that we take advantage of, like grocery shopping or just acquiring a bus. Others are adult occupational, physical, and speech therapy, and the list goes on. There's a multitude of services that these cover. The problems that we're having is, first of all, it's not very clear on the funding. It comes from Department of Community Health, and then is filtered through the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities to be distributed as services. And so right now, our numbers that are standing for the list of those waiting to finally get moved from being approved to actually acquiring services is currently 7,185. And the Region 6 area, which includes our county, that's going to be 697. And specifically, Muskogee County is 90. DBHDD has put out information that this is not a complicated process, that the wait's only 4 to 5 years. That is not the case. My family, we've waited 4 years. We're going to wait longer because our son is younger and I'm younger, despite my mobility issues, as you clearly see when I come here. can't even sit still. It impacts my child's life, and it impacts his progress. He tends to regress when he's kept home more. He needs community living support. We're not getting that. And so the other is the application process. If you do it properly, you're looking at a stack of paperwork about inch thick. It's only listed as a 2 to 3 page application. So it's very misleading to some of our families. The other is for the 7,200 that are waiting, there are thousands that are not aware of these services. This information is only put on the website. Most people learn from other families such as mine. And so they had no idea that these are even accessible to them. They should be as accessible to the public as food stamps like SNAP or WIC. We shouldn't have to dig to find out that these services exist. The other problem we're having is the governor's current plus past have only approved 1 to 7% of the list each year. And we're supposed to have gratitude for just 500 this year being approved. 500, that's it. There's a lot of exclusionary practices, as in the IEPs not matching. IEPs are individual education plans. Their eligibility does not meet the needs of the diagnosis primarily. The other is they have comorbid disorders, like mine has autism and bipolar. So you get pushed between services unless you have an advocate. No, you need to go to mental health. No, you need to go to developmental disabilities, which means no services. That's unacceptable. We keep having services cut, and we're also facing lack of personnel. There's no big effort being put into finding personnel. We have to find our own. We homegrown our providers. Where's our help on this? So what I'm asking, long story short, is to strengthen our voice, whether it's your voice, your vote, or your network, to help us start bringing this to the head so the governor and all the legislators underneath that are making these decisions can finally hear our voices, that they're loud enough. And thank you very much. Any questions?
No, ma'am. Thank you very much for the information. Oh, there is a question. Counselor Crabb?
A question for you, Ms. LaDanny, but I do have a question for maybe the city manager or the mayor. Can we add something to the legislative agenda on this, about this, and just bring it to, or do we just talk to our legislative, state legislators and ask them to
We can still
look
send
into it?
resolutions to our delegation. In fact, all the way up through the beginning of the session, we can continue to do that. So yes,
Just
ma'am.
bring it to their attention, some of the frustrations that they're having down on this level.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Counselor Woodson?
Okay.
Yes, I was gonna ask the same question, but a little bit different. Isaiah, is this something that she can meet with staff to get all that data information so that we can put it in the legislative agenda? Because it is an issue. I have 2 families right now that have children that have autism, and they're having problems putting them in school. And it is very difficult, and it's a growing problem in our community. At least putting it on the legislation agenda, they can start talking about it. Doesn't mean it's gonna pass this year, but at least the conversation can start of the need to expand Medicaid to cover this portion here.
Well, we are going to be coming back to council with those items that were delayed. And so,
Could you add this one with my name on it?
sure, and I would ask that she share some information with the city attorney's office and let them draft something that suits what you're looking for, Councilor Woodson.
Okay, so you just get it with our city attorney, and then he will draw it up appropriately and correct in the right format, and city manager will bring it back, and then we can continue to see how we can help you. Again, it doesn't mean it's gonna pass this year,
understand.
but if you can
Understand.
get the conversation going, at least there's some hope for the future.
Yes, because like we had a bill, last two sessions and ended up, hitting the dead bill, dealing with emptying the now comp waiver planning list, so. Can I add just one thing?
Sure.
Okay, this Friday, the Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities is actually hosting a resource and career fair at the main, library from 10:30 to 2. And during this, Rita Young, who's an advocate on, now and comp waivers, is going to be speaking, and there's gonna be a lot of valuable information with that, maybe a lot more clearer than, I presented, because you can only present so much in 5 minutes. It's a very complicated process. And I would really highly encourage anyone interested to attend that and speak with Rita Young. And I'll see if I can get with her maybe to actually, get with the city attorney. I'm sorry, I'm tired.
I would suggest that you get with the city attorney and see basically with what she's providing and see if she would have an opportunity to speak with them also.
Okay.
To ensure that we put it correctly on the legislative agenda. So I would say to you, have a good night and get with him tomorrow.
All right, and thank you.
You're welcome.
Everyone that spoke with me as well, because it makes a difference when you're in that frustration, so.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Ms. Lee Denny.
Y'all have a good one.
Can't speak tonight. All right, next, city manager's agenda.
Okay. So next, we've got the public art design for 18th Street and Fifth Avenue, and Deputy City Manager Hodge is here, and some of the proponents and supporters, and she's going to talk to us before we ask you to consider voting on this item.
Good evening, council. We have representatives here from Columbus State University. This is a partnership that we started with them in 2020. This is the public art at 18th Street and Fifth Avenue. And so part of the agreement is for the final design to come back for council's approval. And so that's why they're here this evening, to get your consideration of the final design. And they have a brief presentation, just a few slides, to go through with you to present the final design.
Thank you. How do I forward this? Sorry. Hello. Hi, I'm Hannah Israel from Columbus State University, 645 2nd Avenue. Thank you for giving me the time to present this. We were here about 2 years ago, and looking forward to showing you the presentation. For the past few months, we've been working with an artist, Thomas Detour Evans. Detour is his street name, but he is quite an amazing artist. During that time, we had a town hall meeting with the local community, specifically people from the community of Rose Hill. So I'm just gonna go through this. My partner in crime, Becca Sajak, can't be here, but she's watching right now. And I'm also here with our biggest supporters, Joel Amos from the Piedmont Regional, Sally Bradley, who's an artist, local artist, huge advocate for the arts, Steve Morse, VP President for Plant Operations at Columbus State University, and Sharika Day. Sharika is everything, as you know, so she doesn't need an introduction. Okay, so this is what the artist proposal and design had come to be. And again, this is Thomas Evans. And Thomas, how this came to be, after the meeting with the local community, there was a group of the locals who were really interested in becoming part of this. And, you know, the majority of it was part of the Ronald McDonald House, was a really huge part of it. We met with Kiana, the director there, and also Joel from Piedmont had recommended a number of people who might be interested in being part of this. Along with that, with Thomas, we also asked a local photographer, Sammy Saxon, to go around with Thomas to talk to the community, to visit the neighborhood, eat at Vicky's Soul Food, where we met so many really amazing people. Unfortunately, at that time, Rose Hill was closed, and we couldn't go and, introduce him to the locals at Rose Hill, which is, as you know, is like the place to go to. He also worked with Amy Bryan and the people she's working with, Direct Services. We walked around the Housing Authority and photographed people there. But, we're limited at photographing people. They have to make sure that we're allowed to photograph them. And so from all the photographs that Sammy took, Detour took those photos and selected people from the community. And I also forgot, Fox Elementary School was one of the organizations that we went to, and also had permissions from parents to take photographs of the kids. So what you're seeing here are representative of all those organizations. And some of them didn't make the cut, but they all represent the people in our community. This close-up. So one of the things about this presentation is that these are just photographs. The renderings are gonna look really different from when he paints it. So he added these images that where what it would look like from a photo to a rendering. And these are example of works that he's done. He's done hundreds of these all over the nation. And he talks to these people, he knows the people, he really engages in them. It's about their story, but also about all of our stories. We've been working with Columbus State Facilities, and Steve Morris is helping me along in trying to work on the logistics for the project. So, thank you.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Andy, y'all are doing an amazing job. I enjoyed sitting and listening and meeting Detour and listening to him talk. His work is really amazing.
Yeah.
So we're glad
Thank
to
you.
have him working.
We really
Yeah.
appreciate it. And I hope you all come to the reception on December 7th, and hopefully it doesn't rain.
Hopefully.
Thank you. We were looking at around in the morning. We will send out a memo. Thank you.
Let us know.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I've got the fiscal year 2023 Georgia DOT Y410 funds, $7,780.58,
Motion
20% match.
Motion second to approve. Any discussion? You would cue it, I guess, and counselors, you can enter your votes, please. Hang on just a second. There we go.
Got a Georgia DOT planning contract.
All right, there's a motion and a second for item 5. Any discussion? If you would cue it for item 5, and counselors, you enter your votes for this.
Well, that was number 4.
Oh, it's 4, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead one. The one you approved, that's the one.
And next, we've got 2025 funding.
Motion and second to approve the funding for Columbus 2025. Any discussion? Counselor Thomas. Whoop.
And this is to be $1 million each year for 3 years to come from our portion of the
Economic
Development Authority money, not the Development Authority's.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Counselor House? Okay. Simon, hit your light again. Thank you, sir.
Number 6 is increasing.
Before we move off of 2025, we have some representatives from 2025 there.
Mayor.
Oh, I thought we did. I'm sorry, I thought we approved it. Okay, all right. Are we waiting on it to be queued?
Yes.
All right. Have we queued it? I'm sorry. I was ready to give it to you.
Did we approve it?
No, we're waiting for it to queue. All right, now you can enter your votes.
And Mayor, if it wasn't so late, I would have invited them, but you're welcome to come and say something. I don't think you want to.
Thank you for your patience.
And then number 6, I've got increase in appearance per diem rate for court reporting services that the judges have asked for.
Motion and second to approve. Any discussion? If you would cue that for the counselors, there you go, you can register your vote. That's approved.
Got a recycling infrastructure grant application.
Okay. We've got a motion second to approve all the grants, and we will have the city manager walk through those so that we know what they're for, who they're for, and what the match is. All in favor of those, just signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
So I've got a recycling waste reduction and diversion grant application. I've got state and local cybersecurity grant. Got GEMA hazard mitigation grant for the purchase of NOAA severe weather radios. Got a State of Georgia Governor's Office of Planning and Budget Safety and Community Violence grant for $1,500, one for police, and then the same grant, $1,500 for the sheriff's office. Got 2022 Brownfield Assessment grant opportunity, $500,000. Those are the grants. And then we've got purchases. Mayor and council, I've got design and construction services for Shirley Winston. These are swimming pools.
Second.
All right, there's a motion to approve all of the purchases, but we want to make sure there's some things that people have been waiting on, so we'll let folks hear that you have something to. Well, you want to push your light now? There we go. Councilor House.
Are we replacing concrete that was already poured, but there was something wrong with it? Did I understand that right when I read the? And was it not on some kind of warranty, or how come we're having to do it again and we're paying for it?
It was completed based on the design that was done. It did not include any reinforced rebar, and we believe that it was a design error and not something that the contractor did. And so we did request the contractor to re-pour with a revised design.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
So
there was a motion second to approve A through D. I think there's a second as well, right? So all in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Now, Mr. City Manager, if you would go.
So yeah, A is authorizing execution of a contract with Freeman and Associates for the design and construction of new in-ground pools at Shirley, Winston, Rigdon, and Summer Road parks. And we've got $15 million budgeted to handle those things. And B, you just heard the council member talk about that change order. C is cancer screening kits for fire EMS, $38,750. Cancer is now the #1 cause of firefighter death, and so we want to do those screenings. And D, maintenance, repair, and operations, supplies, equipment, and automotive parts, supplies for various departments on an as-needed basis.
Councilor Huff?
Yes, Mr. City Manager, pools, will they be ready for next summer?
No.
No? So we're looking for what, 2024?
The year after that, yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Councilor Woodson?
City Attorney, since we're not gonna have the pools available for next year, is there a plan to discuss what will be the alternate before the summer gets here? I don't wanna wait till the summer to come up with a plan, wanted to know if there will be something prior to that.
We will talk about our plan that will get people to locations that they can swim.
Last few years, we've actually done a Passport Columbus, and we've created opportunities for them to visit a number of different areas, even provided transportation. But we also talked about trying to accelerate, I know Mayor Pro Tem was pushing this, trying to accelerate some of the splash pads in some of the areas and hopefully get those in next summer before the end of summer for the kids. And of course, if the splash pads don't have the same hard stop date when school starts, because you don't need anybody to be there and be a lifeguard.
And my only reason for asking is because there's a new group called Columbus Reload in the 31903 that are trying to find out where all the resources are and to ensure that the community know it, because sometimes we have those passes available, but only those that really watch city council are aware of it.
We put
and
those
some
out through the
agency.
schools.
But I'm just saying
So,
what it's been
yeah.
told to me. So that's why I'm asking if there's a plan or something
Well,
before we do the passes.
It won't be any different than the plan we've had this
In the
past
past?
summer. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So with that, I've got one update left, and that's the monthly finance update. The finance director, Angelica Alexander.
Hello again. As you receive the monthly snapshot for September of 2022, I'm going to ask that you don't freak out, right? There's a lot of accrual activity that happens in July and August, and this is, where we are accruing revenues back to the appropriate fiscal year. And that's really due to timing delays in some of the revenues that we receive. It could be, 60 days out. We may receive revenue in August that really applies to June. And so didn't want to give a finance update until the September timeframe to really sort of help smooth out some of that accrual activity. This September, though, is just a little different because our taxes had a different due date this fiscal year. The taxes are typically due on the 1st of October and the 1st of December. This fiscal year, that changed slightly due to the countywide revaluations that was done by the Board of Assessors. The first installment due date was actually October 15th. So some of the tax revenue that we received last year up to this point, we have not received, posted up through September, we had not received that revenue. But don't freak out, when I go through these numbers, because again, property tax revenues have not been recorded, have not been received and recorded as of the end of September, but we did receive some payments from the tax commissioner last week. And so again, these numbers are really sort of normalized once I give October's report next month. So starting to the right of the snapshot here, with the general fund on paper, it's down 37.39%. Again, this is due to the timing delays regarding the tax payments. We haven't posted that tax revenue yet, and so that is the reason for that difference for September 22 compared to September 21. The other local option sales tax fund, however, is up 6.17%. The stormwater fund is another fund that is tax supported, have not posted the normal tax revenue up to this point. It's showing it to be down almost 90%. Same with the paving fund, that is also tax supported. The indigent care fund, that is 100% tax supported. The integrated waste fund is up, however, when comparing September of 2022 to September 2021, is up 2.12%. The emergency telephone fund is up 4.68%. The Economic Development Authority Fund, again, 100% tax supported, have not posted those revenues yet, but they will. And this report will look a whole lot better for October. The Debt Service Fund is down 43.53%, again, due to the tax postings. The Transportation Fund is also tax supported, It's down 60% right now. The Trade Center Fund is down. It does not receive any property taxes. This is actually down. The space rental revenue and the food service contracts are down for September of 2022 when compared to September 2021. The Bull Creek Golf Course Fund is up 14.89%. Oxbow Creek Golf Course Fund is up 27.76%, both in their operating revenue for the golf courses. And the Civic Center Fund is down just over 50%. And again, they don't receive any tax revenue, but they did receive a grant. They've received 2 grants last fiscal year. And so the difference is here for the Civic Center is related to the grant revenue that was received last year. Moving down the snapshot to the other local option sales tax public safety summary. We've posted to date $5.4 million in revenue, $7.5 in expenditures. For the other local option sales tax infrastructure fund, posted $2.3 million in revenue here. And so to move into the left side of the snapshot, the goal at this particular point is to be at or above 75% in terms of general fund expenditures over when compared to budget. You can see here those departments that are highlighted on the watch list, so to speak. So starting with the city attorney's litigation, they're obviously defending billions in claims. Moving down to information technology, we do have annual fees for software lease and maintenance agreements that are due very early in the fiscal year. And so we do have to pay for those at the beginning of the year, but this will sort of stabilize as we go through FY23. For the Human Resources Department, this is again the encumbrance that we have rolled into the budget for the pay study. Those encumbrances happen at the beginning of the fiscal year, and so that's the reason for that being on the watch list. But again, this is one of those departments that'll sort of stabilize as we go through FY23. For the engineering department, it's the same deal. There's an annual payment that we make to Motorola for radio maintenance. This is done very early in the fiscal year, so that's why it is listed here. The next is MCP, the inmate medical contract that we pay to the provider at the prison. That was encumbered at the beginning of the fiscal year. And so again, as we go through the year and draw down on that encumbrance, this number, they should fall off the watch list. And then the last department is the public defender. That is a contract that we pay to the state. We pay that a month in advance, and that is the reason why they'll always be highlighted here because it's paid in advance. So that in a nutshell is the snapshot for September. Again, October's report will be better.
Any questions, Finance Director?
Mr. Mayor, that concludes my agenda.
Thank you. All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to apologize. I had a little emergency, had to step out to the garage and meet a family member out there. But I wanted to go back to item 10 on the city attorney's agenda and make a motion that we approve the pay plan. And I'm sure the city manager will provide numbers and answer any questions that may have arisen. I know we had a discussion earlier about some cost associated with this. I personally think the costs are not significant enough that's going to impact the city negatively. I'm concerned about the employees receiving their increases in their pay by Thanksgiving. That's what I'd like to have happen. And if we don't vote on it today, it's going to impact that somewhat. I would encourage us to consider that, and I'd like to make a motion that we pass item 10 on the city manager's agenda, which will allow HR and the city manager to go ahead and pass that and get the pay plan implemented.
I'll second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to approve the pay plan. Any discussion? Any questions to any of that? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, it's inconclusive. Come back at the next meeting.
Well, no, Mayor, we'll, not the next meeting, it'll come back in January, right?
They could, yeah, they could.
Well, see,
It's not gonna impact when they get paid, because now it's pushed back into January.
yeah, they would not get this until late January, if you approve it anytime between now and.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. All right, Counselor House.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to, I had to step out. I missed the vote on the public mural, and please vote me as a yes.
So let me be clear, you want this to come back at the next meeting?
No. I just thought if it was inconclusive, it would come
Okay.
back at the next meeting. I guess not unless somebody brings it.
Because I will bring it back whenever you ask, but,
No, it's not.
but,
It's up to council.
you
They're
know,
gonna have to pass
I
it.
mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's dead.
I would like it on the next meeting. Are we not gonna pass the pay plan? Is that what we're doing? We just need time to talk about it. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? We've got about some of the others that are what we do. We discussed it during the open discussion we had. They got it all on video. We just need to talk about it. Are you talking about the appeals? That's part of it.
All right, Madam Clerk, your agenda.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. For the clerk's agenda, item 1, this is a resolution to excuse Councilor Davis from today's meeting.
Motion second to approve the resolution. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Next, we have the Land Bank Authority is nominating Mr. Steve Anthony to fill the unexpired term of Mr. John Tuggle.
Motion second to approve Mr. Anthony. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Item number 3, this is a letter of resignation. This was submitted by Mr. Vincent Allen from his seat on the Building Authority of Columbus.
Motion received with regrets, and the second to that. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion to receive the minutes, and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Item number 5, these are board appointments. We have the council's district seat appointments for the Public Safety Advisory Commission. We have districts 1 and 5 that are open for nominations from the respective council member. And next, we have council appointments. This nomination is from the commission and may be confirmed for this meeting.
All right, there's a motion second to confirm.
And this is to confirm Dolores
Dolores
Carr
Carr, right.
for the Airport Commission.
Right. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Ms. Carr is approved.
And we will bring this back at the next meeting for confirmation. For the Columbus Board of Health, Devika Alapan, she's eligible to serve another term of office. If a member of council, Mayor Pro Tem Allen is nominating her for another term. For the Corporate Extension Advisory Board, Helen Williams and Margaret Higdon, both do not desire reappointment. These seats are open for nominations. Next, we have the Land Bank Authority, Tyler Pritchard, does not desire reappointment. This seat is open for nominations. For the Personnel Review Board, we have Willie Butler, Yolanda Sombry Sewell, Michael Forte. We also have Delano Leftwich. They are all eligible to serve another term of office. Councilor Huff is making that nomination, and we will bring these back for confirmation at the next meeting. We also have the seat of Dr. Shanita Petaway. This is an alternate member seat. She has previously resigned. This seat is open for nominations. Next, we have the Retirees Health Benefits Committee, the seat of Esther Radcliffe. Councilor House is nominating Ms. Cheryl Tate. for this seat, and we will bring this back for confirmation at the next meeting. And this is all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Counselor Barnes? Whoop, hang on. There you go.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
A group of dynamic veterans called Veterans United. What they're doing free food at Lake Bottom Park for all veterans and family members, but also for all first responders. Dynamic group of veterans to do something like that. It's going to be at the band show, Lake Bottom Park. Fantastic group of veterans. And after 2 years, Veterans Day Parade. It's going to be November 12th, second Saturday in November, starting at 9:45. You can get your applications online or at the Parks and Rec's office. And there's going to be something after the Veterans Day Parade. Is that correct? You want to speak to that?
Actually, Counselor House spearheaded that. We'll let him speak to it.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, hopefully, if Holly Browder and Justin Krieg can get everything together and put the marker in the ground, we'll finally have the marker for the stadium that explains the history of the stadium and also has the names of all of the Columbus area veterans that died in World War I on the back of it. And the intention is to have that set up so that after the parade, we can go there and have an unveiling of that.
And after
As
that,
long as we get it stuck in the ground.
and after that, at the Civic Center, it's going to be a veterans block party from 2 to 5. A lot of our area artists are going to perform for the veterans. Everyone can come out. The only requirement, bring your lawn chair. And Mr. City Manager, let me tell you, Rob Landers and the crew at the Civic Center have bent over backwards for this affair. I mean, they have been extremely accommodating. Sincerely appreciate all the support that they've gotten. So this Veterans Parade is, a lot of people have been looking for it. We were wise to delay it because of the pandemic. And this Veterans Block Party is just to have everybody come out and just have a good time. Free entertainment is free. Thank you.
Bob's looking forward to it. You always do a great job on organizing that. Counselor Thomas?
Mr. City Manager, can you give us an update on the light for the flagpole outside?
Our facilities division placed a solar light out. They've been checking and working that to see if that will work. Otherwise, if it does not work, then what's going to happen, they're going to have to actually dig around to the back of the CSC in order to get lighting. For some reason, they cannot just put a light up and plug it in. It's going to take a little bit more, but we are working on it. And
Well, I would hope that we work on it a little faster. This has been several months now that it has been brought to your attention, and it has been since this building was built that it should have been done at that point and was not. But I just really have a real strong feeling about making sure that we are doing what we are supposed to do about honoring our flag.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Counselor Tucker?
Yes, I just wanted to add that we're doing trunk or treat at Shirley B. I definitely want to thank Director Holly Browder, Teresa Snellings, and the park directors, Courtney Mason and Sylvester Selden, for putting this together. So it's October 29th at Shirley B from 5 to 7. And as Nancy Bourne has told me, voting is that day, so it will be close to the baseball fields. I just wanted to put that out there.
Great. Thank you for your work on that. All right, anything else that needs to come before the council? All right, is a motion to adjourn? There's a second? Second. All right, motion second. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.